Hello there and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 16, episode 18. We are live with Rockstar dev at Max Hillebrand. And this episode is sponsored by SideShift, Citrea, Bitcoin.com News, Layer 2 Labs, No1 and Huddling.ch. Rockstar dev, I've been inviting you to the show and my neighbors just started... Go where? No, don't talk to me, girlfriend. My neighbors just started making noise, so I apologize for that.
No worries. Like they heard that you have Rockstar on podcast, and your girlfriend heard too. So yeah, get used to this. We'll get through this now. That
Yeah, they want to become part of it.
Yeah. But sorry, it's just you, me, and our man Max.
Or Mad Max.
Or that. Max, are you mad?
Well, not all the time, but
you should be Mad Max because
some things do
the last time
mad.
I interviewed you, you were CEO of ZK Snacks. You were so happy. You just got a haircut. You looked, like you had it all together, and then the regulators came and ZK Snacks shut down. Wasabi Wallet became more decentralized, which isn't necessarily bad. But you're not a CEO anymore, man. You're CEO of your own life. That's it.
Yeah, such liberating. But I can't believe that last time we spoke was when I got a haircut. That was way too long ago.
So the reason why you don't do video right now is that you don't want to show us your hair?
Yeah, it's a wild mess. I'm slowly catching up to you, Vlad. Maybe by the time of your conference, I can rival you to the greatest hair in Bitcoin.
We're gonna have a showdown. So you guys have been working on privacy projects. You Rockstar dev, you've been working on Lightning stuff, which honestly for sending is most private, at least in the Bitcoin world. And you, Max, have been working on Wasabi Wallet from the ZK Snacks company. And that one brings you pretty good deniability. How's it going?
Yeah. Two different solutions, right? Either you don't tell people about the transactions you make, that's Lightning, or you just team up with hundreds of other people about the transactions that you make, and that's CoinJoin. Either you remove info or you add information. That's, I guess, the two main strategies of privacy. Shut up or get cover traffic.
Yeah, and from my perspective, it's always what I like to post and tweet out is like no privacy, no freedom. And with Bitcoin, whenever you're sending transactions, obviously everyone sees where the transaction is going. So we need to have this additional layers like Lightning, and now what Arc is doing with making a protocol out of CoinJoin, essentially. So yeah, I'm excited to be working on all that stuff for through BTC Pay Server, through Strike even, for quite some time now. I don't know how do you guys see my work in past what is now 8 years? Was it good? Not good? I done enough. I could have done more.
I think you're the best
We could always
person
have
to
more.
judge that because you're the one who sets goals and accomplishes them or doesn't. But it's pretty impressive. You've been, especially with BTC Pay Server, all the development that's been happening. It's incredible. Not to minimize your other contributions, but that one I think is objectively the most useful.
Okay. You, Max?
Yeah, you're a very memeable asset, so to say. And I mean, I haven't seen you without wearing a BTC Pay logo, I think ever. So just from the marketing front, like your billable hours for shilling BTC Pay are quite substantial. So that's solid.
I mean, I love to represent a team, you know. So that's where it's coming from. And yeah, I think we all could do better, not just to represent, first of all, representing the projects we're part of, but then I love representing at conferences as well, other projects, podcasts, because we're really finding ways to push into mainstream against all the traditional, stuff. And people are visual creatures. You got to give them, shirts, tags. Um, yeah, there is also running joke that I'm like a walking billboard of BTC Pay Server. So it's nice to see that it's noticed.
Yeah, and it's the community building aspect of it is super important, and I think this is something that BTC Pay has really excelled at. Like and it's not even that much force. There's only like one BTC Pay Server day per year or something where the community comes together. Um, but that is just a small part of making it actually a cohesive whole and a team. And that's hard work as well and difficult to pull off.
Well,
Yeah.
well, if anyone knows that, it's you. I have noticed that that's something that we share. You had quite few merch items over the years with Wasabi. And one thing I never could get over the fact is that the billboards you would usually put up would be in bathrooms. It's like, come on, man. Like when it comes to marketing your project, like you're putting billboards in toilets and restrooms.
I think everyone
What
who
was
went to
up with
BTC
that?
Prague in 2023 remembers
Yeah,
that. Going to the bathroom and seeing a bunch of eyes staring at you on the wall with the Wasabi logo.
It's quite strategic. It was cheap. That's number one reason. Nobody wants to advertise in the bathrooms, right? So let's do that. We gotta stack sats.
oh my God. I don't know, but there is a brand impact, like if you're doing advertising in toilets. And I was wondering if you would lead with something better other than, oh, it was cheaper. But no, now I'm I am now like, yeah, really
Yeah, and
thinking even more
you,
about it. Yeah.
you want to market also in the places where the product is desired. Like if you want to sell a lot of water bottles, then make a billboard in the desert, or hopefully people are at as well. And in
And
the toilets, people want their privacy. And it's pretty obvious at that point. Why we have doors on bathrooms. We had even more crazy ideas. Unfortunately, we never executed on those. But we wanted to have a live feed from inside the toilets and just broadcast them on the main stage. Um, uh, yeah.
thank God that idea didn't come to realization. Thank God.
Would
Um,
have been so great.
I actually over the years I became quite. Well, I was always quite impressed, but became quite intrigued on Wasabi team because there seems to be so much history and so much was happening and so many people from the Bitcoin community contributors were also they found home through Wasabi, and I was unaware of that. You guys really did good with privacy, um, but I guess eventually we will have some kind of a series on the history of Wasabi, untold history of everything that happened over the years. Because yeah, you were one of the big pioneers of privacy and robust and scalable business. Because yeah, Wasabi functioned really well. One more thing that really interests me is, I don't know how many people that are watching this know, but No Para is one of the first how do I call it? Acolytes, followers of Nicholas Dorier, because the way that Wasabi started was Nopara was just fed up with her current situation, so he traveled to Tokyo, Japan, and started working with Nicholas Dorier. And
Yeah,
as a
I think
result,
Adam Nopara actually learned coding from Nicholas, because Nicholas published a book, How to Program Blockchain in C#. You can
yes,
actually find that. I've interviewed Nicholas also in the previous season. And Nopara found that, and he started building his idea of a Bitcoin wallet with built-in privacy using the libraries that Nicholas Dorier was offering. I think Nicholas was also running his own client of Bitcoin, which was nBitcoin, which he wrote in C#.
yes, that was he started porting a bunch of code from C++, but it goes with it. Nopara travels to Tokyo and spends several months just working and coding with Nicholas. And Max, now maybe you know the details, but what was the name for the first wallet? It was something like privacy. What was
Hidden Wallet. A
that?
very
Hidden wallet. Yeah,
inconspicuous name.
yeah, I knew that it had a funny name. So yeah, and then as
And
he's
even
work
before that, it was the magical Bitcoin wallet, something
magical.
like this. And then it turned into Hidden Wallet, and then into Wasabi Wallet.
The funny part is that I think Nopara also reached out to Samourai at one point and said, hey, I can help you improve this. Let's work together. They told him, oh, fuck off. So he built his own.
Yeah, Samourai told them what they tell to everyone else. Yeah, basically fuck off. But yeah, it was amazing to see that development of Wasabi, and this is what 2017, 2016, 2015, 2017.
December 2016 or something was the first commit, I think.
There
Oh no,
it
wait, it
goes.
was even earlier. It was 2015 for the first stuff.
It should
Yeah.
be that he is in travels to Japan, something like that, late 2015. But what I find really interesting in that conversation is how Nicholas is this accelerator for Bitcoin developers. Because BTC Pay Server starts August 2017, and I joined September or early October 2017. And then what happens to me over the course of next couple of years is just it's amazing. But I guess we'll get to that part. Um, I wish Wasabi was still with us though as a company, but you couldn't keep it afloat, Max.
Yeah. It's a shame, but it is what it is. These pioneering, reckless companies have a limited shelf life, unfortunately. What is important is that Wasabi is still around, right? CK Snacks can die. That was a special purpose vehicle. But Wasabi as an idea and as an implementation, and CoinJoin more broadly as an idea, that's an idea whose time has come. So pretty happy to see that the volumes of CoinJoin nowadays are even higher than they were back in the past when CK Snacks was still around. So that is encouraging. If even a suicide cannot kill the project, then probably nothing can.
It's also
So
interesting the outcome of this, because the Samourai devs got arrested last year, and then ZK Snacks shut down. There was nobody who picked up Samourai and said, I'm gonna keep the project going. But in the case of Wasabi, there were a bunch of people who said, I'm gonna run my own coordinator. I'm gonna support the project. There's even a fork that's called Onion, or what's the name of it?
Ginger Wallet.
Ginger. Yeah, Ginger Wallet. It's part of the team from ZK Snacks that decided they want to continue the project, but become just a bit more compliant than the original Wasabi. So that one is still around, I think. There's also Crew, who decided to run his own coordinator from the US, which was insane at the time, but now he seems to have a more favorable regulatory environment. And there are also some guys from the Netherlands. I think, I don't want to name them, but they are there. There was a website at one point, wasabiist.io or something, where you could find a list of coordinators and their fees and their liquidity over the last few days. It was pretty interesting because this whole ecosystem got built around the project and people continued it, like in the true spirit of open source. But Samourai, they did not get the same treatment. Nobody revived it in a serious way, like saying, okay, let's maintain this, let's make it work. I think most Samourai users just went to Monero.
No, I mean, but Samourai was not 100% open source, right?
Well, that's
No, I
another
think it was
conversation
open
because their
source.
app was not reproducible. So that was sort of a fighting argument over the years, that you download the app on your phone and what you get is not necessarily what's in their GitHub. And they were not even using GitHub, they were using something else. So it was hard to verify what you're downloading. But I think their Dojo software was open source. I'm not sure about the other services like Stowaway and whatever they had, Stonewall. You should know better, Max, because you did more competition analysis.
To be honest, we did focus more on building our own stuff rather than shitting on the others. But I think that we're mainly open source and also reproducible, or at least some people said that they could eventually figure out how to reproduce it. But one of the issues was that, as you said, they self-hosted their source code, and as the feds confiscated all of the servers, etc., that means the source code was confiscated as well and no longer accessible. And so for some time, they didn't really have the up-to-date versions of the code available. So yeah, this just shows that self-hosting your stuff is not in every case beneficial. We really need to have a much more resilient coding infrastructure to make sure that knowledge isn't lost even when some servers get taken down.
I mean, I always look at it from the perspective of how do you integrate what you're doing with public. That's always the magic question. And when you're coding, you really want to get to the point where everything that you code is by default, as soon as you push it, it's open source. And I give you, Max, a lot of credit for this strategy to not only develop Wasabi through a core team, Wasabi team, but find ways for other developers in a Bitcoin FOSS ecosystem to develop on top of Wasabi as a platform. And this is how what happened with Cooks and that coordinator on BTC Pay Server. Like, that was the background of it. Because if you run BTC Pay Server, then you can run Wasabi coordinator. And I really want to see more and more of this cross-project collaboration happening in open source ecosystem of Bitcoin, because that's the only way we truly succeed, is because everything that I've coded, especially in the last year, it's like open source. And then if I'm gone, anyone can pick it up. And that's really what I hope in next several years, that there will be more Rockstar developers, and then they can take over the code. I would even give up my GitHub account, or give my X account, give my Nostr key, and that way you really are able to move on and no longer just like, oh, it's Rockstar developer, it is just me. It would be great if actually there were like 3 or 4 devs uh, behind the Nym. I think about that a lot lately. I don't know, Max. What do you think about that as a model of protecting open source devs even?
Yeah, it's the hiding in the crowd aspect, right? The cover traffic. I think it's an extremely interesting strategy to have multiple people behind an account. There is some trust aspect here, right? Because once you have revealed your access credentials, then anyone can nuke the account, so to say, right? Take it over, change the passwords, kick you out, etc. So that is kind of difficult. That you need to have a reputable relationship before you allow access to others to this account. And then, of course, the question is if you know the identity of the people who you've just invited, then you can be forced to reveal this information, and it's no longer as anonymous as we would like it to be. Yeah, but I think it's quite promising, and you have actually two interesting aspects here, specifically when we're talking about Nostr. If you share your NSEG with a group of friends, then not just can this group make public posts without revealing who exactly made this post, right, with quite great anonymity, but also you can encrypt messages to your own private key or to your own public key, and then have a group chat where anyone can read the messages because anyone can decrypt them, and anyone can write messages to it because you can sign messages with that key. But you have no way of knowing who in your group sent this direct message. So you have a quite interesting form of anonymous chat where not even the members of the group know who is saying this stuff. It's a lovely idea.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting. Yeah.
I guess you should also use the same VPN and connect to the same server.
Yeah, this is also one thing that was very cool to see in Wasabi, that even if you have crazy sophisticated cryptography, you can still be totally fucked on the network layer. And so any serious privacy project really needs to consider the entire network stack and do identity management on the network communication layer. And thankfully we have Tor, which makes this, at least in theory, possible. The Tor code is quite finicky, so it makes it in practice and implementation very difficult. But ultimately, you can get a new network level identity for each API request. And this is, I think, quite essential, and we should see something like this in more applications. I would love to see Nostr clients that, for example, create a new Tor identity for each pub key that they query via WebSockets from Nostr relays, etc., to really ensure that the relay operator himself cannot tie multiple API requests or WebSocket requests to the same end user. All of this is possible, just difficult. And yeah, hopefully some of the Wasabi code could be reused and yeah, make sure that at least the idea continues to be proliferated.
Speaking of network level analysis and privacy, did you guys look at the Nym VPN? I think it launched a couple of weeks ago. And what I like about it is that this mixnet adds noise to your data packets. So you're constantly sending packets of different sizes so that it's very hard to tell when there's noise and when you're actually sending data. Of course, it's delayed, and there are some of these timing issues. So the time that you send is not necessarily when your party receives the data, but it's pretty cool for something that has maybe only a few kilobytes of data. It can actually work well because it hides inside of that noise.
Yeah, mixnets are awesome. Like I haven't tried the released VPN yet. I didn't even know that it's out, so that's cool. I'll check it out. But the concept of mixnets is a quite substantial improvement over onion routing, as it also protects against a global passive adversary, right? Someone who can see the entire network traffic. And the onion network specifically does not prevent against such an adversary, even though we know that those adversaries exist and that they sell access to their data to third parties for not even that much money. So it is an interesting additional layer of defense. And also mixnets have the same property as what I just explained with onion routing, that you can easily cycle to a new identity for each API request, which is really cool. So yeah, mixnets are It's high time that we finally see them deployed in reality. They're an ancient idea, and we've seen a couple implementations, but none really caught on as much as Tor did. So yeah, that's great progress.
And to bring the conversation back home, if you want to buy time for your VPN, for example, a monthly subscription, you pay via BTC server, and I think that's beautiful.
BTC Pay Server. Yeah, when I see where BTC Pay Server is present, it's super crazy to see all the different deployments that we have. But I see questions are starting to come in. Not very serious questions for start, but I can switch from just showing myself to showing actually the screen. Do you see this?
It's flipped. Let me fix it.
So that our viewers can enjoy the stream as well. But the question is, Derek Ross, the founder of Nostr, would you rather fight 10 ostrich-sized honey badgers or 10 honey badger-sized ostriches, and why? This one is super easy. 100 honey badger-sized ostriches, definitely. Because if it's a honey badger, you can't kill it, like even one. So, easy answer.
Yeah, I don't know. If you have a
vicious,
flamethrower, I think it's easier to fight 10 of them.
I looked at ostriches are way less resilient. So yeah, I'll go with 100 honey badger sized ostriches. What did you want to say, Max?
Man, ostriches are vicious, especially when they're in a pack. And one of the issues is they have range. Right? They have very long necks. So even if you shrink them down, that would still, they can probably nib at you before you can kick them. Just on the rage
very thin necks. So yeah, easy to cut off. And if you're using guns, rifles, stuff like that, also way easier target, even though they're like honey badger size. No, I'm keeping with my with my answer.
I think ultimately us privacy freaks would still win in both scenarios because we would simply hide and they couldn't find us, and so there could be 1,000 of them. We don't care.
One thing is, you were talking about these VPNs that I started thinking about is this fact that we build for truthful and actually robust systems. So that, yeah, you can communicate privately, you can do all this stuff without others knowing. Yet we live in the world where people are publicly jerks and they publicly break the contracts and they publicly do immoral stuff, like all these things that, if you want to do something immoral, kind of, there was this social contract that, okay, do that immoral thing in private, make sure it's not public knowledge that you're immoral. Yet again,
you don't have to compliment me so much, Uncle.
Oh, yeah, this was a hook just for Vlad to get out. But seriously, we all have dark sides. However, now those dark sides are not only on public display, they're celebrated, like, through cult of personality. So I don't know what you guys think about latest development and the fact that we are worshiping immorality. We're worshiping the devils publicly. Is there even a point in working on privacy and maintaining privacy?
Oh, people should have the option, right? Even if they choose to be jerks publicly, they should have the option to hide some stuff that maybe they do want to hide, and maybe that we should not see for reasons which concern the health of our brain cells.
Yeah, I've read Cypherpunk's manifesto many times, and I always, when I think about that whole thing, how you can't have uh, democratic societies and free and open societies in digital age without privacy, that comes to mind. Is as we produce more information, as we now have AI to produce information, um, you have people going what I like to call they're like information mad. You're going mad from all the information available, and privacy is critical not only for me to hide some of my information, but that I do not burden the rest of the network with the knowledge of something tough that I'm dealing with, because it's not scalable. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. You don't want to know too much information. Too much information is a dangerous thing, which was ultimately one of the raison d'etres for Wasabi, and the fact that the backend server is blinded, right? That we removed as much information as necessary that the user has to share with the backend server, so that we simply don't have the information, and nobody comes knocking for asking it, because, well, we have nothing to give. And I guess that extends to your analogy of, if you can just mute people and simply not get the information from them, then that's a liberating feeling. You don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to carry the consequences of knowing the information that you probably just shouldn't know in the first place.
Yeah, and I see that this happening more and more, how we're muting out each other. And with the advent of AI, I really see the future where humans may not even talk to each other. Like, you talk with AI, you get to a certain level of expectation on the quality of conversation, and then you just don't talk with other humans because they're not focused on you the way
They're
that, like, you
not
can make
impressed.
AI focused. What?
Not impressed by the quality of human conversation.
Yeah, yeah. You're like, this doesn't bring any new insights, and I need to please the other person. I need to be interesting enough for other person. Way better with Chat GPT. I don't need to do any of that.
Yeah, but the AI is always on topic and always gives you the information. It can't be funny, it can't be mysterious unless you ask for it. When you talk to a human, they're gonna give you a vague response. I don't know, maybe that they're cooking and they're like giving you a short answer, and you spend 30 minutes thinking, what does he really mean with this? Does he even like me, or is he trying to do something? Like, there's this mystery that you get from communicating with humans, because you never really understand what they mean. With AI, you can just ask questions until you really understand where it's coming from, and you get also the intention behind the answer. But with humans, you just get an answer, and you have to
I think you can
judge.
program for that. Literally, you tell AI, be a little mysterious occasionally.
Yeah, but you expect it. And I don't think it's
Uh,
gonna remember to be mysterious, or it's not gonna be mysterious when you expect it the least. Or
It sounds like an implementation detail to me. You can definitely write the code so that it does what you want it to do, Vlad.
That's another thing that I've been thinking about. Can I get to the point where I feed AI all my X stuff, all the Nostr stuff, and then automate away this whole Rockstar identity? And that would be an
I'm pretty
interesting.
convinced you're already doing that. I mean, If I look at your code on GitHub, it looks pretty vibe coded to me.
No.
Shots fired.
No, nobody can keep the streak going for so long. Come on, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's not my code. No, I am using AI more in coding though. You know, a decade ago, the usual flow was, or like 2 decades ago, the flow was, okay, you buy a book, you install IDE following the instructions in the book, then you implement all the code examples from that book again, and then you try to compose all those pieces together in unique way. And if you don't know something, okay, now you're stuck. And then 10 years later, what came up was Stack Overflow. Did you guys use that site?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
When you
it's
want
quite
to
useful,
find some
actually, for
command line
Bitcoin
stuff
knowledge
for
too.
your Bitcoin node, you go to Stack Overflow, and there's always someone who asks the same question that you have many years ago, and the answer is pretty much the same.
Yeah. And you, Max, you said?
Yeah, not just for coding knowledge, right? Also for technical Bitcoin knowledge. The Bitcoin Stack Exchange was great.
What were your reputations on those websites on Stack Overflow?
I don't even have an
Quite low,
account. I just
probably.
open it for reading.
Yeah, usually lurking.
Usually
That's the thing
lurking.
about the vast majority of internet traffic is lurkers, right? Like what, 98% or some crazy number like this don't make public posts. We should get back to that.
No. If I lost my Stack Overflow account, I am going to flip. Oh no, I have it. Let me log in. Because I really maintain my presence there. Okay, I need to, yeah. What is I'm close to 21,000.
Which is the correct number, of course.
Yeah, I need to get over 21,000. This should be within top 2% on Stack Overflow. So yeah, 10 years later, what happened is, yeah, you code, then you run into problem, you post on Stack Overflow. But then Vogue people jumped in, destroyed the website with all the rules and all the moderation. And what's happening now is you code, you don't go on Stack Overflow because it's super depressing asking questions there and participating. You just go to Chat GPT. And the next frontier is Chat GPT is integrated in IDE, so you're not even coding, you're having a conversation with bunch of AI agents that are working on code base, and you're monitoring and just testing and giving them nudges in certain direction based on the knowledge that you have.
We're totally here already. Like, did you check out Rule Code? It's a Visual Studio extension, and it's mind-blowing of what you can do with that at the moment already. It's gonna be insane to see the next 6 months or something, if it gets even better than what it is already.
The Cooks has sent me this windsurf editor.
Yeah, it's a similar.
And it will be really interesting to see what kind of systems people can build. And what really fascinates me is you'll get to the point where you yourself don't even have that foundational knowledge, but you're coding the systems that can process millions of transactions. Because for me, man, this has been such a long journey. I've been coding for over 25 years, and then in university also was forced to get into normal forms and how do you normalize data in database, and then there are all these patterns. Then if you're writing multi-threaded code, this is how you should approach it. Then you spend weeks debugging one bug, some kind of a race condition that you have in code base. But all that builds up foundational knowledge. So when I sit down and need to code Strike, I need to implement the backend of Strike, and that backend processes billions of dollars. I feel comfortable because of all the foundational knowledge, and then also people that I get to work with me. Those people also have spent decades coding. Now we're getting into domain where chat, GPT, or AI will write code and you won't even know most of the code base. You know? Weird privacy for AI.
Yeah, but you still have the
Yeah,
human
and then
input. So the AI doesn't do anything by itself, has no idea of human needs or desires or whatever. And as you said, you do need that formal training and programming to be able to fix bugs or tell the AI when it's going the wrong way. Or if you believe there is a more efficient way of doing something and the AI is just using patterns that maybe work but are not the best way to solve a certain problem, then it's still the human element that brings that to the table and improves the result.
I think it's just also a part of the specialization and division of labor. Like, if we would all have to still write assembler code, or use punch cards or something like this to program our machines, we would just need a gazillion people to write any meaningful software, so to say. And now instead, on the other extreme, when you can just vibe code crazy stuff with a single prompt, that means that one dev can build a quite sophisticated piece of software. And then therefore, since we have just more supply, right, ultimately, we can build crazier and crazier and crazier things. So I'm quite bullish on this. We'll have like one person companies that or projects that generate an enormous amount of value. It's going to be almost like Tether. 21 people working on it, but like $21 quadrillion profit every month. But for the software world and with actual value creation.
Two things there as you're talking about it. Number one, yes, there is a concept of we're just adding another layer on top of this stack of assembler, low-level programming languages, high-level programming languages like C#, and we're adding one more layer now, AI written code. But to me, it does seem like if you are a software developer with very solid foundation, you shouldn't be going into writing more of the systems. You should more go into security aspect and just exploit these systems for profit, because there will be tons of badly written, vibe coded systems. And then the second thing, mentioning that, okay, now you have, instead of having 20 people or 200 people or 2,000 people, 20,000 people companies like Microsoft, you end up having just one person develop something crazily valuable and profitable. Think about how much privacy will be important, because this is just one person standing against the rest of the world. Because if you're Bill Gates, you had the whole, oh, I have a big company, there are other people in the company. It's just like, oh, it's you.
The bus factor all of a sudden is very, very interesting. If that person gets hit by the bus, then everything tumbles.
And you do
But then
not
also,
have, yeah, you actually don't have an army of lawyers. You don't have army of compliance people on your side. You don't have army of lobbyists.
You have an army of AI lawyers writing all the complaint letters and defending yourself against them.
Yeah, that's quite interesting future, but I would definitely argue that it's super scary, actually. Yeah.
Well, I'm not so sure if the code quality will be so bad after all. You know, like to keep it with the analogy, it's probably wrong in detail, but ultimately the compiler doesn't mistakes nowadays anymore. Right? The compiler is just always correct, and so we
But you have
specifically because we can.
logical bugs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Compiler
but it's
can't.
like,
Yeah, go ahead.
and I'm sure, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, the compilers were not as bulletproof as they are nowadays. So, you know, if you extrapolate that out, sure, today's AI generated code is probably not perfect, but in a couple years, it might, especially if we see the crazy advancements and in just the last two years or something like this. That makes me bullish on very solidly written code in the future.
Well, what you're talking about, it's not even so much about compilers, but you have that static and dynamic code analysis. Even now, if you're a human writing certain code base, there are tools through which you can put your code base, and then it's analyzed. And not only analyzed, but you're given specific instructions on what you need to fix. So yeah, we actually, I'm now thinking we can maybe even run this experiment live on the show if you guys want.
Wait, what's the experiment?
Running a code base through AI analysis.
Are we
So
gonna
that
use different AIs or the same one?
we can use, well, I don't have any credits for Chat GPT 5, but
I have some. I bought something because I wanted to generate some Ghibli images, and then I discovered that the API is not public yet, but I spent the money anyway. It's called PPQ AI or something.
PPQ. Oh my God,
Paper
that's
question.
PPQ. Well, yeah, if you want, you can actually. I'm now thinking I can show the process, and then we switch to you doing it, if you're up for it. Because we could run BTC Pay Server code base through it. You see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, BTC Pay Server is actually, that code base is very big, so it seems it's rejecting to process it. Let's see. Let's see what it says about my plugins. HTTPS. Will it be able to process my plugins? Boom, there you go. So this tool, what it does, it packs your code base into a single file and gives the list of all the files in the code base. Then you can download that, and as you download it, you can now go to Chat GPT and you can upload it. So what should we say to this? Analyze, get repository, and give and do basic static code, and give your recommendation on a load. There we go. And now we're vibe coding instead of talking about privacy.
Well, eventually, maybe an AI will do better podcasts than we do them.
Oh,
Probably
I
not too
think
far off.
it's already happening. Do we have any comments
Sure.
on the podcast? Something. Oh, it seems we have our ostriches in troll box.
They're just saying good morning and doing vibe checks. Whatever that means.
No, they should ask questions about privacy because we are now warmed up and can get onto that topic, which is where I can now I can reveal why I'm one of the topics why I'm here. One of the motivations is I just want to hear and witness the masterclass of Max on all the privacy resources and tools because he publishes these great posts. He goes on podcasts and talks about privacy and the resources, but I'm busy with coding and other obligations in my life. So what I prefer is just if I'm here live as he's talking about privacy resources and I can ask questions and expand my knowledge way better than listening to his podcasts. So Max, prepare for like 20-30 minute lecture. Are you ready for that?
Well, I'm always ready for that, but one thing to consider is that you could listen to it on 2x speed if you just catch it on the podcast afterwards. So if you're short on time, then doing it live is a big mistake.
Oh, no. Way better like this because as soon as you mention certain resource, I can jump in because I actually take big pride in the fact that I see I myself as one of the practicing advocates of privacy. Like, if you look in Bitcoin, how many people are uh, practicing what's preached? There is still first name, last
Yeah.
name. There is still appearances on the stage. And what I love also seeing now is that more and more people are on the stage in a way that I was on the stage a few years back. I'm still waiting for Shinobi to give me credit for the mask and the hat and all of that, but that guy is too proud to give anyone credit. So it will take quite some time, but I love to see that. And this is where Max, as you're talking about privacy resources, I want the option to jump in and be like, hey, expand on that. So that's the first topic. The second topic, I still, I guess, will wait for the second hour um, for me to get into it because it's a little bit touchy subject.
Let me show some
But
ads before we get started with Max's lecture to give him
let's
some
go.
more time to prepare. So, what happens when someone wants to pay you in stable coins and you really need the money, but you don't want to touch that? You can use SideShift. Basically, you just type your BTC address and then you send that URL to your friend who wants to pay you in stable coins, and you're just going to receive BTC to your address. That's one way you can use it. If you want to gamble, you can also buy the Trump coin or the Melania coin or whatever. I don't know why you would want to do that, but I'm not judging here. I'm not a judgmental person, but you can do this on siteshift.ai. They have pretty low fees and also a lot of liquidity for this sort of stuff. So don't get paid in stable coins. Not financial advice, but I still think we're in a bull market. You wanted to say
One thing to
something,
highlight
Max?
on this point. Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, I was checking out SideShift as I've heard it on your pod, and I realized they don't take Lightning anymore. So
Yeah,
couldn't
they
use it
removed
after
it.
all. Because who does on-chain transactions nowadays anyway?
Like
You'd be
everyone, because
surprised.
these are one VSAT per byte. Yeah, but look at this side shift. Boom. Why am I blocked from using side shift? Country blocked. I love this list now where it's like side shift is blocked from North Korea, United States of America, Iran, quite a group here. But side shift actually is one of those privacy preserving tools. Andreas Brecken is behind SideShift, right, Vlad?
Yeah, he was on the show on Monday, so 2 days ago I interviewed him. He said that he removed Lightning because the support team was unhappy that there were a lot of failed payments and they had to resolve them. And there was not a lot of, they didn't have that many transactions anymore. So they decided to drop the support because it was expensive to maintain. But yeah, he's also the CEO of shitcoin.com.
He is one of those shit posters that we have that has been online for quite a while. I actually love the way his online presence, and I love his work actually. Look at this. Sminim. So yeah, kudos to SideShift. But I would recommend to people also to try fixed float. Have you guys tried fixed float?
I think it's the only one that supports Lightning right now.
Yeah. So sorry, Mr. Brecken, you didn't sponsor me, so now I'm promoting your competitor. But once you add Lightning back, we'll talk. Yeah. Is there Bitcoin Lightning? There it is. So you can switch between different ones, but not if you're in US. Oh no, you can't use this tool. It's forbidden. So
Do you even VPN, bro?
no, of course I'm connected to this show, and I'm sending my IP address to Vlad, so he can finally find his way to Uncle.
It's
I
not
know
my
you
own
have
server,
been.
it's Google, so I can't see anything.
You haven't installed IP tracker, bro, as add-in. Oh my god, terrible.
Oh, so you can track my IP right now.
Yeah, if you're admin of Google Meet, you can get IP address. So
Oh, that's messed up. I had no idea you can do this.
Surveillance as a service.
no, it's a convenience as a service. It's like you as chief security officer and that established Google Workspace, you need to be able to see who is connecting to your Google Meets, right? So that's more important than people's right to privacy. If they connect to your Google Meet, you should be able to see who is connecting.
Yeah, anyway, to give Max just a bit more time, I gotta ask you guys, what do you think about Drivechains?
Main sponsor of the podcast. Max, take this one.
Well, that's more difficult than actually the privacy rams. But no, like I think it's a very interesting second layer approach, sidechain approach. However, I think that with zero knowledge proofs, we have a more interesting crypto economic solution to the problem of sidechains, where we don't need to trust a federation to keep it up anymore. And
No, that's
ultimately, drive
liquid.
chains in my mind. Well, but drive chains are also kind of a federation with miners, and so I think cryptographic proofs are better than the game theoretic approach of drive chains. But I'm not too deep into this subject to actually have a really solid opinion on it. And it would just be nice if we can experiment more on Bitcoin with stuff like this. But of course, that comes with unintended consequences. So it's a tricky question. I definitely applaud Paul for his diligence on making it or trying to make it work. I just wish for his sanity that he can keep it. Usually, that gets lost easily when you try to change Bitcoin.
Yeah, anyway, you can find the software at layer2labs.com/download. You can get the versions for a Zcash sidechain, for a BitAssets sidechain, which is a fork of Namecoin, for something which is like a fork of Ethereum, and you can get them to work together on the Bitcoin Signet. And there's also a Telegram chat that's called Drivechain Talk, where you can ask people to send you some Signet coins so that you can transact with them and see how this works. It's no longer just an idea, it's actual software that you can try. But for yourself, Max, since you're so eager about ZK proofs, the other sponsor that might be part of the future of Bitcoin is Citrea, and they're building ZK rollups. And they basically, their goal is to bring a suite of financial services to Bitcoin. And they're also on the, not on the Signet, they're on the testnet, if you want to try that out.
Testnet, that's so 2014.
It's so sad to see that there are so many projects on Signets and testnets, but they're waiting for some sort of soft fork activation.
I don't know about that. I look at where Bitcoin currently is, and do we really want to trade stability for cool new features? I mean, who will use these? And yeah, observing what was happening with drive chains over the years, it has been quite frustrating for Uncle, because Uncle is such a good consensus builder, and Paul is not. So when you, Max, say you worry about his sanity, I think Paul lost his sanity quite some time ago, because he approaches it almost exclusively from technical side. And to finish my chat GPT part, this is all great and makes sense from technical side, but things like this, you need to get down into nuance and understand why reset links are done without tracking or notifying the user. It's interesting to see that, look, this is what Chat GPT thinks about drive chains. So it's actually quite good overview. Would you agree, Vlad?
Let me zoom in because I don't see it so well from my window. Okay. Minor centralization risk. Miners could collude to steal sidechain funds if 51% dishonest or censor pegouts. Yeah, but you can add Lightning on top of it. You can actually swap assets from one drive chain to the other. Of course, miners can steal, but they can also 51% attack today to double spend some transactions. It's like farmers burning their crops and asking for insurance money. It works once, but then nobody wants to do business with you anymore. And miners, I think, they're playing the long game, and they're the participants that have most skin in the game. They invested in infrastructure, they have electricity bills, they want this to work. You're typing my answer?
Yes. Let's see. Want this to work. Respond in critical debate style, arguing for your point. See, now that this podcast with AI is way more interesting, right?
There's Daniel C in the chat. He says, can you make an experiment about asking AI to give you online privacy advice? I'm a noob and I'm curious if the advice would be any good.
Daniel, we are first giving Professor Max 20 minutes for his lecture, and I'll be taking notes and feeding them into AI.
Yeah, so I guess it's time to start the lecture, isn't it? Or do we have more sponsors, Vlad?
For now, we're good. I'm going to present after your lecture.
Yeah, but look at this. This is actually a great point that Paul can use to defend Drive chains don't introduce new attack vectors; they surface existing ones. But
I think
yeah,
ChatGPT always agrees with you if you present a point.
no, I don't know. See, I said one yes, flip sides, and call
Steelman.
me Vlad, young Romanian, uh, beautiful boy. Do it in funny and contentious manner.
Manner or language?
Language.
Ah, Vlad, young Romanian beautiful boy, ever enchanted by the sweet aroma of minor incentives and economic rationality. You sip your palinka and gaze into the drive chain abyss, whispering, farmers won't burn their crops. Well, allow me, crusty, cynical, battle-hardened, to ruin your optimism faster than a Balkan winter crushes a sunflower. What?
Yeah,
First off,
see?
Vlad, you trust miners too much. Miners are not philosophers, they're not driven by beauty or symmetry, they're mercenaries with ASICs. And drive chains, they offer miners custodial control over sidechain withdrawals. That's not farming, that's a vault with a please be good sticker on it. But they wouldn't dare. Oh, sweet Vlad, they would if the bribe is big enough. If rich DeFi protocol gets 10 million stuck in a sidechain, a shady fund offers 2 million to censor or delay the pegout, that's more than a day's worth of global mining revenue. You think they'll recite Austrian economics and walk away? Yeah, but once again, it's like burning the crops. Miners have reputation. All mining pools have this.
Well, how worth is your reputation? Like, yeah, how what's the price tag? And I wish someone now you read this so beautifully. Someone should take and make a remix of this. It's like Vlad, the young Romanian beautiful boy, and there are beats coming across this, and then no, these are all good points. In conclusion, sweet Vlad.
Drive chains are like offering Dracula a blood bank and saying, I trust you, my prince, don't overindulge. Well, let me tell you this, ChatGPT. Miners can activate soft forks no matter what. If we don't like it, we will still be validating the same chain. So they can change the rules with soft forks. Are we gonna be angry? Yes. Can we potentially hard fork away? Yes, but that's dangerous. But if 51% of miners decide they want a soft fork, they're gonna activate it. There's nothing we can do about it.
So that's the direction which Paul is going. Interesting.
Yeah, it's called the Core Untouched Soft Fork. CUSF.
I'll wait for Paul to again approach me, ask for my advice, follow me on Twitter. Then I give him advice. Then he doesn't like advice, so he unfollows me, like makes a spectacle out of it. I'm just waiting for the next edition of that. But in the meantime, sweet Max, are you ready for your lecture on privacy and resources? And I'll be taking notes as that happens, so that and please, those of you watching, take notes as well, ask questions, because Max is a treasure trove of privacy resources. So you ready, Max?
We're in
Or
school.
we need to give
Always
you more
ready.
time to prepare. Oh, always ready. Then let's go.
Well, you gotta get started by getting fired up, right? And for this, I think there's the. You hear me, right?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, there's the declaration of separation, which is a very, very powerful, a very powerful book that's or pamphlet manifests the Declaration of Independence or the cypherpunk mind. It is important to have a private society. So this is a fiery piece to get you started, and then you can work yourself backwards. a bit towards the old classics of the Cypherpunk Manifesto and the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace, and go on and on. There's one great fiction piece which is also a good place to start, called "The Lodging of Wayfaring Men." It's a really great piece because it's actually based on a true story of a group of cypherpunks who in 1995 to 2000-ish were working on the first anonymous marketplace, anonymous corporate registration, stock exchange, payment system, and such. And yeah, they were building that out against a big overreaching government, and got into interesting conflicts and problems. So this is a great fictionalized story that really goes deep into the philosophy as well. It's very interesting to read not just a bit about how the tech was in almost 25 years ago, but also of how the people were thinking back then, and the philosophies that were applied. So very much worth considering this one. And then to get a bit more into the practical ones, there's one quite holistic, overarching book with a lot of great strategies called The Second Realm, a book on strategy, which builds on top of Lodging of Wayfaring Men. It kind of takes the fictionalized account and puts it into a almost step-by-step guide on how to build a free society, and the strategies to be employed there, specifically when in conflict with the state, which freedom-loving and privacy-loving strategists are frequently at. And what further resources? There's then a sedition, subversion, and sabotage as the spiritual follow-up to the Second Realm. Goes into even more dangerous and reckless strategy that are very interesting to read and accumulate the knowledge and see if it will be useful for you. And one more modern and not so cypherpunk but very practical book is on extreme privacy, what it takes to disappear. Got the name of the author, but it's a step-by-step guide on modern technologies to make your life a bit more private. So this goes from stuff like using Graphene OS and Tor and VPNs, but also to more physical spaces, like how are you going to get your packages delivered? Which American state is best for private residents, and how you're going to get your driver license, and goes a bit into trusts and corporate structures for improving your privacy. It is focused mainly on the American audience. However, some of those tips are definitely useful for the global opportunist. And the list goes on and on. So maybe I'll just do a quick break here and see what you guys think about it so far.
Yeah, so Professor Max, did you see my hand being raised? Because I can use that to signal when I want to interrupt. So you saw that or no?
I did not see it, but I'll pay attention this time.
Yeah, in the future. So you mentioned 5 resources, a declaration of separation, and you had a post on Nostr recently on that topic. Was that like original content or you copy pasted?
No, this is copy pasted. The original is, I don't know exactly when it was published. I think 2010 or something like this. Yeah, and I've posted this already end of 23, so a couple of years ago. But whenever someone reposts it, I repost it too, because it just gotta keep being highlighted.
You see my screen where I'm showcasing the series of podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's essay is over here, right?
Yeah, exactly. The website that you're highlighting is fantastic. It's anarplex.net was the original website. This was a place where cypherpunk gathered back in the good old days, and where mixnets and IRS remailers and other fancy technology like that was hosted. Unfortunately, that site got taken down when they stopped providing the crypto hippie VPN service. But we have archives of it. For example, on anarplex.syrian.io. Syrian, like the guy who's working on Fedimint, the protocol, which, by the
Yeah.
way, the Fedimint as a protocol was invented, or federated eCash as an idea was first coined by Smuggler at a talk at the Hackers Congress at Parallelnipolis in 2017, I think. He was quite involved in some of those writings that I was speaking about. So anything that you see by Smuggler and Frank Brown, and maybe specifically noteworthy is their podcast, which unfortunately is abandoned, but Cypherpunk Bitstream. You know it's a Cypherpunk is Fuck podcast when the episodes are numbered in hexadecimal and not just decimal.
Yeah, interesting. Because as I was now going through these resources, you said lodging of non-faring men. What's the name of that?
A Lodging of Wayfaring Men by Paul Rosenberg.
Yes.
It is also on Anarplex, the first edition of this. You can also get it on his current website called freemansperspective.com. And you can find the audiobook on the Parallel Society podcast for free. Highly recommended. And on good news, we're about to publish the third and definitive edition of this book in a new print with illustrations and the whole Shazam and the consensus network. So stay tuned for the definitive, ultimate, final edition of the greatest cypherpunk story ever told.
Okay. Goodreads would disagree, but we won't get into that. Though those people have no taste, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you're right. It's not a literary masterpiece. If you're looking for beautiful prose, this is probably not it. But if you're looking for a cypherpunk as fuck fiction Death Knight story, then this is it for sure.
Okay. Well, we're gonna send Uncle link once it's up. And then you were mentioning Second Realm, Smuggler XYZ, book on strategy.
Yes.
You see it on my screen.
Yeah, this one. Yep, this one is really interesting. He goes through how different organizations have secured their own autonomy and sovereignty, and the strategies that they have applied. So he goes not just analyzing the nation state, but also the mafia or the yakuza, really not so peaceful organizations, but they manage to be sovereign nevertheless. So us peaceful people should learn a thing or two from them to ensure that we can enjoy some levels of sovereignty then as they did. And so some of these strategies is to, of course, stay private. Right? If your adversary doesn't know where you are, who you are, how many you are, then defense becomes much easier. But also you want to have early detection systems, right? So protect your perimeter, get notified when the adversary is approaching your lair, and then build layers of defense and of obstruction so that after the first intrusion happens, there is a delay until the adversary reaches the honeypot, so to say, the actual juicy things that you try to protect. So give yourself as much time as possible. And you do that with closed doors and bouncers and, just distance, so to say. And then very often, evacuation is a great strategy because it de-escalates and you can take your capital and move it elsewhere and it doesn't fall into the hands of the adversary and you can just keep building. And one of the great lines here is that when in direct contact with the state, usually violence is a bad choice because the state can outprint you and therefore outgun you. So it's much more beneficial to go and evacuate the scene, take all of your capital, don't give the looters anything, and instead of focusing your time on fighting, focus your time on building on the second location that you should have already set up. Right? So optionality is key here. Don't just rely on one base, but have evacuation plans to your second base so that you can keep building, keep being productive.
Yeah, and then sedation, subversion, and sabotage field manual number 1.
Sir, that's sedition, not sedation.
I'm sedated, but sedition, yeah. This is where you go more into attack.
Well, this
Right.
is an ultimate solution to the state, right? So one of the gists of this is that there are different classes of freedom fighters, and it might be worth to separate those identities, right? We have the propagandist, so to say, tell the whole world about, hey, look how bad the state is, look how they fuck up, and look, we have a free alternative, right? And then we have the builders, those who actually go and build the tools that bring freedom and prosperity, right? So like beautiful developers of BTC Pay Server or Wasabi, right? And ultimately, we also have saboteurs, right? So the people who go and actively manipulate the let's say nation state infrastructure to hasten the demise, right? So those are basically the accelerationist strategies to ensure that the state continues to fuck up and to then simultaneously build a better alternative and a parallel society. And then thirdly, tell people not just about the evils of the state, but about the beautifulness of a free world and that it is within reach.
It's for people that are already at the phase, as Intro says, okay, now what are you going to do about the injustice of the fact that state exists and does all this evil stuff?
Yeah, this is not a beginner's book. This is for the seasoned psychopath.
And the last one that you mentioned was extreme privacy, what it takes to disappear, right?
Yeah, this book is, I think, in the 5th or 6th edition, so it gets an update almost every year. And it talks a lot about the everyday strategies and technologies that are useful and helpful, right? So it's almost like a Bible. You don't have to read it from top to bottom. You can just pick it up and look at the things that interests you at that moment. It sometimes is a bit of a dry read, but it's a great one to have in your library and in your bug out bag, just in the case you need it.
Yeah, because as you were now, Professor Max, you were talking through all these resources and presenting them. I always saw privacy as a tool, but I didn't look at it from the perspective of being offensive tool. It's more of a, I always looked at the privacy and the way that I use privacy, like how do I get the world to leave me alone? Because in this extreme privacy, some of the topics mentioned here are absolutely they're part of every day of, unfortunately, like what vast majority of population. Okay, if you're using your phone, you are creating data about yourself that's then owned by someone else. It's like digital slavery. And this is where privacy always comes into me. But as you were presenting all these resources, you were slowly going from uh, defensive approach. We claim the right to exist and we will defend it. We do not seek to overthrow anything. We do not seek to control anything. We merely wish to be left alone. But it's slowly going towards, a little bit of fiction, second realm strategy. How do you organize your caches, move between them, to actively, let's destroy the state. How
That
does that?
escalated quickly.
Yeah. How does how do you look at that? Because for me, I always see privacy, and the way that I approach privacy is just like, it's non-offensive. I actually don't want to impact anyone, but we do have big groups in privacy camp that are seeing privacy as a weapon, which now I realize, yeah, it is.
Well, it is I guess a bit of both. Right? Sometimes, or ultimately, I think that the state is so incompetent that it doesn't need much help to screw up sooner. Right? But nevertheless, the state is probably the number one purveyor of privacy invading practices and ideas. Right? So, in order to ensure that we can be left alone, the problem of the state needs to be addressed ultimately. And I do like the cypherpunk or second realm idea of we just opt out, we exit, which is extremely powerful as a concept. That we don't need the first realm to disappear or cease to exist. If you're waiting for your liberation until the state is gone, then you're probably going to wait for a very long time. So it is quite beneficial if we find strategies that work despite the state still existing and still being there. And Bitcoin is the perfect example, right? We didn't have to wait until we end the Fed. We can just go ahead and use an alternative money and simply not use the dollar anymore. And that removes a substantial attack vector and brings us into a much freer and prosperous future right away for anyone who wants to pick it up. So I do agree with your sentiment here. It's just those books are an interesting addition to at least contemplate.
Yeah, I think about how it happened for me, having a separate and dedicated identity for Bitcoin, and then the freedom that I have in that identity versus in my private, personal identity that's, again, fully separated. How much of potential solution that is for other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Compartmentalization, so to say, is a very great privacy strategy and need to know basis. Right there, as it's in the Cypherpunk manifesto, there's simply no need for identifying information to be part of most transactions. Right? If you buy a newspaper on the street, the guy doesn't need to know who you are, where you live. You just give him cash, you take the paper, and you're out. And that's just fine. And I think this extends even more to, let's say, the more critical tasks as working on Bitcoin or other freedom technologies. It's probably not necessary for you to appear with your main identity, so to say, and you're going to have more protection and also more freedom if you have a new compartmentalized identity that you can bring here to the table. I think it will make you calmer in both cases, right? When you are actually working on the tools, but then also when you're with your family, right? Because you're literally different person in these different scenarios. And so officially separating that, I think, is a wise strategy that people like you have successfully implemented. The cool thing is that it works, right? It might not protect you against the most sophisticated adversaries, but it will definitely protect you against the low-level thieves and thugs. So that is worth it, yeah.
Yeah, but I have this also saying that you're one debt away from complete privacy. My biggest issue right now is the fact that I'm stuck in this Rockstar dev identity for a number of years, right? But considering the degree of separation that I have achieved, all I need to do is, let it go. I have all my like chat apps in a separate profile on the phone. I have separate emails. So I theoretically could just let that go even, the next second, and then my private life continues. But all this other thing stops. It's actually quite interesting because I do have it as a work profile on the phone, and there is one button that I click, and all the work apps they're shut down. So when switching between identities, it's that single moment of like, turn it off or turn it on, and I'm really looking forward to see how many more people will do this, especially as AI continues to feed us all with the information. People will just continue struggling. Like, how do I process this amount of information? And that's where this separate structure with separate identities comes in.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the many benefits, right? If you're done with your work, you're done with your work, and you can not just technologically but mentally switch into a different identity, and hopefully that can help you clear your head.
Oh, it helps a lot, man. Again, as practicing privacy advocate, I think also about how when it's clear that it's distinct identity, when you're in it, you can focus on it looking nice, like this current display that I have with burning fiat. And yeah, when you switch off, then it's different device, different browser, different setup on that device. I think, yeah, for a lot of people, the reason why their identities are not so strongly established is that laziness of, oh, I need to go through the whole setup to get to the point where where I like it. And then societal norms as well, is being okay to appear like this. Because
Yeah, but also
even
consider it a game and an adventure.
yeah, but I one of the things that I love is how much everyone in Bitcoin, and especially companies, they love to profess their um, love for cypherpunks and for the philosophies and self sovereignty and all of that, and then actually seeing and participating in the moments where you are they try to like make fun of you for using a name. Man, those are actually some of my favorite moments in the spaces because
Must be also
I
the same people who pay for dinner with their credit cards and they wear Don't Trust Verify t-shirts, but they run non-open source software. And there's no cognitive dissonance because to them, their identity as cypherpunks or supporters of anything private, or I don't know how I should call it. Their support for anything which is in the spirit of open source and freedom is just a way to be part of
You
a
should
group,
call
but
out
is not part
specific
of their
person.
personal belief.
No, you should call out the specific person, because I pay with credit cards, but you do. I'm now trying to figure out if you're making that joke, because I have a credit card that says Rockstar Dev.
I
Did you know
almost had
that?
I
my
guess that's
bank
an
account
issue.
shut down this year.
No, the thing is,
The-
there are ways now, but you mentioning, like, I would go, you bring that specific person on a podcast, and then you expand on that. Because one great thing about the identities is, once you establish them, you do not need most of the tools. The biggest thing is to ensure the separation. Uh, but if you're in control of separation, once I have identity Rockstar Dev, I can let my email be known by everyone. Doesn't matter. You're still arriving in an inbox that's separated, that doesn't have a strong connection to my private personal identity. So, credit card, another thing. If someone steals my credit card, okay, there is a bigger degree of connection, but it's still, they don't get my uh, government issued first name, last name. So yeah, identities are very powerful. As for what you were mentioning, we can start gossiping. You just bring up who this person is, and we go full on. Max, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a lot of the privacy downsides really are self-inflicted, and like using a credit card or having a closed source operating system or using a bank account, having a Google account, etc. So it's really very straightforward to start consciously going through the tools and applications that you use and seeing if you really want to reveal this information to the service provider. And then if you realize that no, actually I don't, then just get rid of it. Vlad almost made it happen by getting his bank account canceled, but a great solution to getting your bank account canceled, the way to avoid that is to take the first step and cancel it yourself, which is actually very doable. You'd be surprised. You don't need to have fiat bank accounts, especially in a world where we have Bitcoin. And the same with Google. Like you can just remove your Google account, right, and delete it, or delete your
Google is
Twitter.
so convenient.
Yeah, but you don't need an account for for most of it, or at least some, right?
This,
And they're great.
go ahead. I'll build up on that later.
Like we're using, unfortunately, Google Meets for this call. I tried to get us out of it, but Vlad refused. So public shame on you. um, but I don't need to have an account to join this call, right? It works just fine without, and that's one of many examples.
Well, I need to have an account to be able to generate the link to this call that you can join without having an account. So that's how it works. Someone has
That's
to
the
have a bank
concept of a
account for
proxy
you
merchant.
to be able to engage in this sort of commerce. You're not avoiding, you're just delegating.
But that's good
Well,
enough, right?
yeah, but it's really, I always look at, like, what is the intent of the owner of the system, and how much are you paying to whoever is the sovereign of the system that you're using. Because you look at the technology that Google provides for free, it's actually quite impressive. The biggest downside is the fact that it's not really free, because you are providing them data in return that then they um, collect, summarize, and sell to the highest bidder. But as long as Google is not actively malicious and you're able to do what I've done, open an account with a pseudonym like Nym that's not tied to your government identity, I applaud that. Like more power to that type of the world. Because what we're really trying to do from my perspective is just get to the next phase, like liberate ourselves uh, so that we can fully participate in the next phase of humanity. And the next phase of humanity doesn't really have the states the way that we had them in 19,000s, like in 20th century, where in order for you as individual to advance, you do need a government issued IDs. You do need banks. You do need um, state sponsored TV, because that's how knowledge propagates. That's how you use money in a better way than your country. If you're a part of better organized country than someone else, then you can do commerce with other people. But the way that I see is, over past few decades, we have developed a better systems, like better technology, uh, that are literally plug and play replacements. And now we still have state as this obsolete technology, and people within the state, politicians, government employees, trying to cling on their serfs, individuals. Like, who pays the taxes that keep us keep paying our salaries? Like these people. Okay, we can't let them go.
I think
And
part of this point was made by Nick Szabo in his article about social scalability and Bitcoin. You can find that on his blog, which is called the Unenumerated. And I think one of the metaphors that he's using in his articles is that of the watch or the clock, where you just have something that tells you what time it is, and it's yours. And you can program it, and you can be sure that it shows you the correct time. You don't need to ask someone else all the time, what time of the day is this, or to have a government to tell you. But once again, it gets silly because you do have governments that tell you what time it is, and they even change the time twice a year because they wanted to get more daylight. But I think that's besides the point. We read about social scalability. Now we have tools to do stuff that in the past was impossible without a central authority.
yeah, and I look at central bank and fiat money are actually quite impressive technology that, in my view, has helped civilization scale, but it's now at the point where it's no longer helping scale, it's holding us back. And we need to move to Bitcoin as the better technology. Simple as that. Uh, Privacy as a tool is very useful there, is because this type of stuff, it's better that you discuss it privately as it's being built, so that it's not influenced by way bigger, way more powerful adversary, because they're adversaries just by um, the the way things are set up. Uh, but Bitcoin now, I even look for Bitcoin. It's easy. Bitcoin is now at the point where it can openly stand in public, and it's clear to everyone that's looking that it's better technology than fiat. It's just that it needed that period. Satoshi himself said it. He's like, we don't want to kick the hornet's nest. And yet the hornet's nest was kicked. The WikiLeaks started accepting Bitcoin donations. And by this weird twist of fate, government banning WikiLeaks donations made WikiLeaks 1,000 times richer. It is quite interesting how all that works.
Yeah, and it's just great that that we have these technologies available, and they are ready to be used. And so it's now much more of a question that there is a problem, and then once that is checked off, the question is, do you have the courage to actually walk through with the solution? And that might be a point where many people are still stalled at. But ultimately, the possibility is there, and just because it is possible, it will get used by more and more people, which will start this flywheel effect of really moving the needle and making a quite sophisticated and big impact on the world.
Yeah, and I really now think about how identities is big part of the privacy category are important because when there is privacy covers all the activity, all the interesting activity, things that are happening. But if you follow certain identities, that's how you can end up on a frontier before it becomes public. And right now, that frontier, you see all these interesting identities on Nostr. That's still the frontier. We should talk a little bit about that, Max.
Yeah, Nostr is magic tech. It really is crazy cool, and it decreases the cost of having a NIM identity by a huge factor, because now identity is defined by yourself and no longer by a third party server like Facebook.com or Twitter.com. Now you just flip a coin, and that gives you a key, and that's your identity. And now you can continue crafting the image of this identity by adding metadata like what's the profile pic and what's the name and the bio, and very importantly, where do people send you money for this identity. And then you can start shit posting, right? And building reputation, making connections, following other people, and getting yourselves followed, which just means signed, right? Other people sign your public key, and giving it that reputation, that metadata, that slowly but gradually builds a web of trust, so effortlessly, and in the Nostr world, where new identities really can flourish simply by the fact that you're providing useful information to others, and they like it enough that they want to see more of it. And then all of a sudden, your identity is no longer a random number, but it starts to become much more real, right? You're having an impact with other people, and they have an impact on you. So Nostr is a saving grace for privacy and anonymity online. So it's wonderful tech. We should keep building it.
I do think that we're not using Nostr to its full potential, though. I look at how much all of us we're clinging to our identities that came over from X, from other social media, and now most of the Nostr activity is kind of focused on recreating X, but with Zaps, and I I think we should really go deeper into Nostr and using Nostr as a technology, as a protocol, to start hosting types of information that you can't find otherwise. That would be a huge bonus and a way for more people to get into Nostr. And I also wish that Nostr liberates more of identities out of the people. It's like when people come to Nostr and create that private public key, is that they don't do it, of course, with first name, last name, but they also don't do it with a NIM that's on their other social networks, and then see what kind of identity arises through their interactions on Nostr.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the great thing is that you can you can easily spin up a new key. Right? And that just means that you can have multiple identities in parallel. And also most of the apps are built with multiple identities in parallel in mind. Right? That's not so easy in, I don't know, Facebook. I haven't used that in forever, but I think it's difficult to manage multiple accounts there. And that's just much more effortless in Nostr, which is great. And then the other stuff part, the not just Twitter clone part of Nostr is huge, right? One of my favorite Nostr clients is Zap Store. And there you don't publish shit posts, you publish releases for your software. And anyone who has ever tried to publish an application on Apple's App Store or on Google Play Store knows the feeling of rape that stimulates. It's quite tense and really degrading. So to be able to just, click a button, sign a message, and voila, your release is out there and done, and people can download and verify that it's from you and zap you money for it. It's not even just 10 times better. It's uncountably better. And it works for everyone, and not just for the few people who can pass the KYC checks of these corporations. So yeah, the Zap Store is one of the many Nostr applications that really shift the paradigm so much that in hindsight you're thinking like, why did we ever make it the other way? It was so bad. Now we have a much better solution.
Well, the action item for me then definitely is, how do you get to more interesting information on Oster? And then whenever I get, you see the message on my screen, whenever I see more people fortifying their identities and publishing about it, I love to see it. So tag uncle whenever you're doing that, so I can zap. I need to start doing the zaps. I've been slacking. So
Yeah, but this is also one of the things, we've been fighting for anonymous payments all this time, and now we just start publicly zapping each other. And I think in 10, 20 years, we're gonna look back in absolute horror that we made cryptographic attestations of, hey, look how much money I sent this person. I think that's really dangerous. So I'm a big fan of the private zaps. Right? You can tell the receiver of, hey, this was actually me making that payment, but you don't really have to tell the public, I think.
well, what are we gonna do about that, Max? Because vanity is one of the best sins.
The best sins. Yeah, it's certainly the one of them that makes you feel quite good. And yeah, being able to send a fat zap and brag about it is quite tempting. Right? But think of your future self. Think of your children's children. Do you really want to tell your grandson that you zapped 10,000 zats to the stranger for a poop emoji? Like 10,000 sats is going to buy him a damn spaceship, and you just gave it away like that. So consider your reputation for a future self.
Yes, I actually do. I find the fact that you fortify that moment with a zap, and it's not a stranger, it's also someone that that you interact with and you build your identity with together online. I actually love the fact that there is ability um, to fortify that moment. Now, of course, there are, you can look at from the perspective, if a more powerful entity comes after you and it's like, okay, we now have this whole trail and you are on trial for something, we use this data and manipulate it to fortify our case that you're a bad person and you should be punished. Of course, in those scenarios, people will mostly go in the direction like, oh, I wish I haven't done that. But I don't know, guys. The more I am in this Rockstar identity and that I participate with you all in this revolution that Bitcoin is, I find it good. Like it's a good action.
Well,
Yeah.
what are some privacy advice, or what is some privacy advice and tips that you would give to people listening? Like, how can they improve from where they are right now, which maybe means that they have their full name on social networks, they reveal their transactions because of vanity, and maybe that they also KYC'd to some exchange, and that exchange tracks all of their transactions.
Yeah, I can answer this because I answer it quite often every week. You start by establishing a separate identity. And for start, it doesn't need to be phone number. You can just do an email inbox, the way Satoshi did it with a separate Satoshi at gmx.com. And you start building up on top of that identity. What I would do right now is I would go open a Nostr account as well and start interacting with people that I like. The main thing is to find an anchor. The way that it happened for me, because I had a different identities before Rockstar Dev, different online identities, but the Nicholas and BTC Pay Server project ended up being anchor for Rockstar Dev identity. So there needs to be something repeatable that you can do every day and that you are actually genuinely enjoy it. And by now, I'm 100% convinced that for 80% of the people, or even more, 95% of the people, you cannot create a meaningful anchor by yourself. It has to be something external. So unless you're type of like, oh, you're Satoshi and you can create Bitcoin, simply it won't be as strong of an anchor for your identity. So I don't know, you like BTC Pay Server project. Okay, that can be an anchor for your identity. Create email, create Nostr account, start interacting with BTC Pay Server content, start sending, hey, this is what I want to contribute and improve this software. And slowly that identity will arise. And as it arises, um, you can start looking into stuff like you bought, Vlad, you were mentioning, someone bought KYC Bitcoin on exchange. You sell that nasty stuff on the same exchange, get the dollars, send dollars to yourself, and start obtaining no KYC Bitcoin in this separate, disconnected identity. And I think if you get to that point, you've already um, done enough. You obviously follow Max on Nostr. You look into all the resources that he shared during this episode, and then this should easily keep you busy for a year. What I just said, but you're busy with this, as you're doing things, um, your life will improve immensely. Do you agree, Max?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great strategy. Um, and I would maybe add in front of that, just become aware of the problem and really consider what is the information that I reveal about myself to the world and to others, and do I get a benefit from it, right? If yes, then sure, right? Keep doing it. But quite often when you ask yourself these questions, you realize that no, actually, I share way too much and I don't even get anything meaningful out of it. And then that's an opportunity to act and to change. And on top of all of the great advice that Rockstar just gave, I would add that review your technology, right? And try out free and open source software tools that come with privacy in mind. Right? Privacy gets so much easier when the people who build the tools and protocols have considered privacy in the design of the tools. Because then you don't have to worry about it. You just have to use the tool as it was intended, which is usually quite easy. And voila, you get privacy almost for free. Like Wasabi is a great example, because the builders of the tool have obsessed about privacy for decades, right? You just have to install it, receive, wait, and spend, and you have a very, very private experience for Bitcoin transactions. And you don't have to know about any of the advanced details. You just use the software. And so that means to choose software alternatives that are built by respectable people that have your best interest in terms of privacy in mind. And so start with an operating system. That's the core of your computer. And that if that is Microsoft, then I mean, I'm talking to a Microsoft fanboy with Rockstar here, but unfortunately, that's not good enough if you're using Windows.
Just sorry for interrupting, but you do know that in this new version of Windows, there is AI installed by default that collects like the screenshot, from what I understand, of your desktop and takes a snapshot of your data every now and then. Microsoft Recall.
It's great.
You know about this?
Right? Yeah. It's and like that's the thing, right? It's a super great feature if you don't care much about your privacy, and if you just want to have the convenience of asking your computer, hey, what did I do yesterday? So if that's your goal, right, and if you're okay that now Microsoft has a screenshot of your Bitcoin seed as you were backing it up, it's totally fine, right? But maybe you should just consider if that is something that you actually want. And the great thing is that there's not just one alternative, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of alternatives, just alone for operating systems. And you don't have to go, all out crazy and start running Cubes OS or Tempo OS or, some madman's concoction. It can be just a regular Debian computer or Graphene OS. These are just very approachable and easy to use nowadays. And then continue with the entire stack that you have. Hey, is there a more private email client than Google? We consider Proton Mail. Then same for how do I share my files, right, between devices? Consider something like Nextcloud or SyncThing. What do I use for chatting? And Telegram is not as private as Signal is, right? There are, well, for basically every software application that you use, I'm 100% sure that there is a free and open source and privacy preserving alternative out there. So do some basic research, do some AI lookup, and you'll probably find great tools that respect you as a user much more than what most people just get installed by default on the phone. And take it step by step. As Uncle said, the advice for giving you here is probably good for a year or two, but it doesn't have to be all at once. And just a consistent and gradual improvement is worth gold.
Yeah, for me, what I've also found very useful is having this identity for Bitcoin, an identity that's public. Now I do have an email for that identity, and I get to use tools like ChatGPT. I get to use tools that are published right now and use this identity to register for these products that are on cutting edge of public. But then as I find specific functionality actually useful, because there are so many services right now, you register, you run a free trial, and then they try to capture you. Enter your credit card information, become our serf, start paying for the service. And it's like, if it's useful service, yes, you start paying, but even as you start paying, you do not want to pay to that service with your first name, last name, is because as they're building the database, they're going to start cross-checking with third-party providers. They may decide to sell that data. So yeah, you don't want to go in that direction. Direction which I'm going is register for really any service. If it's useful, you start slowly figuring out how to integrate it into your own sovereign stack, so that you're mentioning, oh, sharing files. Google Drive is amazing, but it's not for all files. If you really want to own your files, you should be selecting, okay, from your Google Drive, what is trash, or what is something you don't care about. You don't care about this, make it public. Like, post it on X or whatever. Oh, you care about this piece of data, move it to your hard disk, and then use syncing to sync across devices. So it, and also, how do you start using the ultimate for me is, how do you start using open source technology, and then contributing to the open source technology that you use as you build that sovereign stack. But I don't know, Max, I think we're going too far deep down the rabbit hole now.
Yeah, but that last part you mentioned is super valuable actually. Like, this shit doesn't build itself. And um it, plus it's a hell of a lot of fun to work on Freedom Tech, right? Or in generally speaking, to work on the tools that you use yourself. There's nothing more rewarding than stumbling upon a problem in the tool that you have, and then fixing it, and knowing that now the tool is better, not just for yourself, but for potentially ministry. That is extremely rewarding and just fun, right? Plus, the best people are working on Freedom Tech. So you're gonna make crazy cool friends like Rockstar, and he'll literally become your uncle, right? Just because you picked up
Maybe,
the shovel.
maybe, yeah. If you're worthy enough, and then you need to pass the ritual as well. But can't go into details of ritual. Also, one thing, Max, that you were saying is, as you're using these systems, do they give you value? Do they give you benefit? I also am very conscious about the systems that you're using. Is like, not only what they're giving you, is also what are they taking away from you. And I see the systems that we're now using every day, they have this integrated cost, and often it's very masked. So you start getting pieces of yourself um, taken without even being conscious of it. And then the real question behind it is, who would you be if those pieces weren't taken from you? If you weren't bound by certain chains, like whether we're talking about how much does it cost to use a certain service, towards what are the societal norms that you're forced to live up to in order to participate and not be ostracized. So very conscious of that. And this is again where I would advise people, also for their own good, to not fully convert their existing identity into something new, but to create that frontier for themselves where I always wanted to pursue the hobby of contributing to free and open source. Great. You start doing that gradually through a new identity and see where it takes you. Because as someone that, like, I look at my whole character has benefited immensely from having Rockstar dev identity over past 8 years. I can attest. There are also moments where that identity pulls you too too further away, like it overexposes you. But this is again where I found having a good circle of people around you, um, staying humble, stacking sats, following those principles that keeps you uh, grounded in a good way. But for a lot of people, I question, are they grounded too much? And instead of going too deep into tools, install graphene, use only open source software, this, that. Like if they're really jumping from one trap into another, because it's not about tools, it's about you and how do you develop as individual using the different tools. um I don't know, what do you think about
Yeah,
that,
that's
Vlad? Yeah. As a Vlad the podcaster, I know that's very different than Vlad the person with his girlfriend.
That's spicy. So your question is about the stuff that you're losing, like convenience and maybe companionship when you're isolating yourself in a private environment with graphene or
No, no,
whatever.
no, no, no. When I was mentioning that, I'm more saying you're losing pieces of yourself. Imagine you have a Facebook account in your first name, last name, right? So every time you go online and you read, oh, there should be drag queen shows for kids, and you do not respond to that post with a comment that says, like, you're goddamn insane. Like, you are losing piece of yourself because you're not saying the truth as you see it. And
But
now
the
think
question is
about
when you're
person.
walking down the street and you see something you don't like, do you
Mhm.
always stop and comment, or do you just say it's none of my business, I'll just keep walking? Because I think
There you
online
go.
it's even easier to engage. It takes a few seconds. Nobody threatens you physically. You can just not check your notifications after you post something. But in real life, you have to deal with the consequences of it.
Yeah, but do you understand what I meant when I said you're losing pieces of yourself? Like when you're on LinkedIn and you gotta participate in the whole uh, feel good, post good stuff. Let's not go into drag queens. Let's use another example. Like, you're not being yourself. Do you understand what I
Yeah,
mean? I don't.
I get that.
Yeah.
You have to pretend. You have to play
Mm.
along to be part of a group, to be accepted. I mean, I sort of lost that last year after one interview which I posted. People don't pay attention to my other interviews, and then all of a sudden I get a lot of attention and it's mostly hateful. And I realize,
Mhm.
okay, so they don't really care about context, they just care about their own perception and their own bubble. And I sort of lost that. I mean, right now I don't care. I can invite anyone I want on my podcast. I'm ready to deal with the backlash of it. I just follow my own moral compass. But I'm aware that most people are not able to do this. And canceling someone is real. And just being dismissed by one of your peers can destroy your career, can destroy your family, can give you a lot of stress. It's not nice.
Yeah. So we're talking about you interviewing Roger Ver, right?
Yeah, it was almost, no, it was more than a year ago. It was 30 something of March, 30 or
Yeah.
31.
Yeah, but we're talking about that, and I was one of those that I was like, damn it, he's interviewing Roger. Why is he doing that? And I look at from the perspective that the damage that Roger has done is so immense. What's the name of the exchange where he went long Bitcoin Cash and then didn't want to repay his debts, so they needed to declare bankruptcy?
Well, they settled that in court, and apparently he won, so I don't know. It's not up to me to judge that. That's their point of view. They went to a court, they did that. There are lots of stories about this, like even the Mount Gox one when he went and he recorded that on camera. He went there out of free will, like he wasn't paid to do it. And as the story goes, Mark Harpeles was dealing with this tense situation where people were withdrawing and they were not able to keep up with the capacity, and he wanted to take the weekend off, and he was like, I'll see you guys on Monday. And everyone else was showing up, including Roger. So you got to listen to both sides of the story, and my job is to ask people questions. It's not necessarily to push an agenda, and that's what people expect from me, to stay in line with one agenda. But I'm not doing anyone's, I don't know, I'm not getting paid to play one side's.
The thing is, I'm now not debating, I'm discussing. Uncle is here more to discuss, and also the way you're giving your point of view, giving my point of view. When I look at the Roger, you're now mentioning, okay, Mount Gox. What about him and all the conspiracy theories about Lightning, and then bringing up private information of Elizabeth Stark and insinuating things there? So somehow we have this person that goes from one trouble to the next trouble to the another trouble, and somehow he's never guilty of anything. It's always like, oh, he has been wronged, poor Roger, la la la. My conclusion, again,
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
your
saying
conclusion is mostly karmic. You're adding up something from the past which you think should have made him accountable, and then you discover a case where the government steps in and punishes him for something which is not objectively clear, because according to him there's not even a clear amount that he has to pay to the IRS, and he paid his exit tax 10 years ago and then they came back for him. So you find this and then you think it's justified. And that's not really objective because you judge according to your previous perception. But every accusation has to be backed by something. So he's not being accused for spreading false rumors about Elizabeth Stark dating Jack Dorsey. He's being accused for something which has to do with tax evasion. And that situation happened 10 years ago.
Well, my point is exactly the way you started with karmic, because I don't go beyond karma. I don't have time for that. My main point is I wouldn't even get too much into judging Roger Ver. Like, I feel sorry for the guy, and
No, you
the
shouldn't. He
main
has
my
more
main
money than
point.
all of us combined.
Let's not get into that topic. But yeah, if he has more money, the point is, it's like it's not the person I want to associate with. That's the thing. Is like he has been given chances, second chances, third chances, fifth chances, and he shouldn't be given any more chances, in my view, until he changes his way. Like, that guy is a bad actor. And the way that situation went, again, now moving on from Roger into what I actually care more about, and that's you, Vlad. It's like it went into escalation. One thing escalating into another, into another, into another, while we should have followed the best practices of privacy and kept some things private, not public. Because once it's public, it's everyone's domain. And then
Oh, but did you
what
listen to
happens
the
is,
interview?
what?
Did you listen to the interview?
I No, I didn't listen to the
Okay,
whole
so
interview.
is it fair if I comment on your code without actually having tried the software? Like, I'm gonna say Strike sucks. I never tried Strike, but is it fair?
Did you try Strike?
No, I never tried Strike.
Did you comment on Strike?
Yeah, I just said it sucks. Because other people said it sucks, so by proxy, by this web of trust, I'm gonna assume that they must be right.
Yeah, but I actually wouldn't go away from that, man. I would go like you as an individual, you need to function in this complex society that brings up every day there is infinite number of things that you can research and get into depth, but you shouldn't. You should pick and choose. And the way that I also pick and
Yeah, but
choose
who
what I
decides what I choose? Like, should I just appeal to some
let
sort
me
of
tell you.
council of high priests and ask them, is it nice if I research that? And they tell me, no, you should focus on this.
Who are the people you admire?
I don't admire anyone right now. I admire my parents for working hard and keeping me in
Well,
university.
start.
But I don't have any idols at this point. Like, I grew up looking up to people and I became disappointed the more I learned about them. So at this point, maybe I look up to David Chaum or something for inventing digital cash. But
You don't admire me, like not
I respect you,
anyway.
but it's not like I hold you in high regards and I'm like, oh, this guy. I gotta put a poster of this guy on my wall.
See, that's why you feel ostracized, Vlad. If you did that and then you followed Uncle and his work, your life would be 10 times better.
Send me a
But
picture
now,
of you.
there we no. Trying to actually be practical in what I'm saying. I do that with people in a sense. I do not hold back from saying that I and then admiring people. It's like I admire your persistence with this podcast. This is what, like 16th season?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 7
How many years?
No, 6 years.
Why then 16 seasons? Like you do what, 2.3 seasons per year?
I used to, but now
2.7.
it's the 16th. So last year I discovered that I started season 15 during the 15th year of Bitcoin existence. So I was like, why don't I continue like this? So I will not get to season 17 until January 3rd.
That's actually good. You're aligning your seasons with Bitcoin. You caught up. That's actually quite good. So I admire that. And then I always remember when we first met in person in Riga.
Was it Riga or Prague? I'm not sure.
No, we met in Riga. I only been in Prague a couple of years back, but I was in Riga 2019, and then 2020 there was no Riga. There was COVID. There's 2021.
Oh yeah, I remember the 2019 one. It's the one with the famous BTC Pay picture.
And that's the thing is I always remember the respect you had as appearing there. It's not a American conference because Americans don't listen to European podcasts unless it comes with this fancy British accent, you know. But in yeah, Max, it is how it is. This is why you advertised on Pedro McCormick podcast. But in Riga, Eastern Europe, it's completely different. And then Vlad comes with your podcast. Also, the amount of respect those everyone there has for you, it's great. It was great to see. So yeah, I admire that, man, and I'm glad that I am finally at the level where I can be on your podcast. Then I admire other people like Max, Hillebrand, Wasabi, what Wasabi team did. Because by doing that, you look at like where someone not necessarily better, but more advanced in the topic that interests you. And by doing that, you do not need to have rulers, but you can have a council of sorts of people that then help you process information. Like one of the people I admire immensely is Giacomo Zucco. So when you're mentioning now Roger.
Oh, the same guy who realized that he has nothing bad to say against me, so he created an account. Like he's 40 years old, has 2 kids to raise, and he created an account that was all about me fucking my own dog. And he used his authority in the space to push this rumor, and he spent 1 month posting every day from that account.
Well, now,
and
do
you respect him immensely.
I respect him immensely, and I think you do too if you look at his past work without that episode.
Can you mention a project that he bootstrapped or he made successful?
Plan B Network is quite successful right now, and the work that Giacomo is doing in helping first like existing Bitcoiners take the next steps, and then people that are not in Bitcoin, like get them into Bitcoin, is amazing. Now, he helped me. I wouldn't get into private details, but over the years, BTC Pay Server has helped a lot. So my respect definitely doesn't come from the episode that you mentioned, but this is also where I look at every person as a talent is when you see talent is shown when person is at their best, and that's how you can see how talented someone is. And then really character is on display when person is at their worst. So when you were also faced with the adversity, you went down the fake Toshi route because you were hurt. Like, oh,
wait,
you're
what?
gonna
Can you give more details about that?
like you saying that you're gonna sue some people, and right?
Well, if someone tells you that you're doing your job because someone paid you for it, and you can prove that it's not true, and the person can attest to that it was voluntary. And I actually spent 2 months chasing Roger to get him on my podcast, and I've been messaging him. And it just happened that he was available that week. And then people come up with conspiracy theories, and they don't just come up with conspiracy theories. They spend an entire month doing character assassination to boost their own platform while diminishing mine. Because that's how this game works, right? You gotta find someone who steps out of line, and then you portray them, you build this straw man, and you associate to them all of these qualities, or not quite qualities, all of these flaws, and then you present this to the public, use your platform without even asking a single question. You know what Dan Darkpill did? He's the biggest troll and the smartest of them all. But he did not slander me in any way. He just reached out to me and said, hey man, are you okay? What happened? You know, I had lunch with Harlonat. I met his wife. I spent a lot of time with him. I supported everything that he ever did, from magazine to case. And I'm not saying that this should exempt me from criticism. But my point is that when you're this close to someone and you see the opportunity to attack them, you should at least ask a question first before you present something which is provably false. And then you say, oh, look at me, I'm this saint and I'm exempt from any sort of accountability. And if anyone else says that they're going to sue me, they're Craig Wright. You're not thinking objectively, and you haven't seen my perspective, and all you did was observe. You're obviously having your own cult-like moment, you know, because you're stuck in this bubble and you believe everything that they told you. You never care to ask me about this, but then you come to my show and you say, oh, you went the Craig Wright route.
I was actually gonna message you as well, and then
It's not
uh,
about you
I
messaging me
saw.
or not. It's just that your
Well,
perception of the events is distorted by those who told you about them. Because
no, 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 no. My perception is not distorted. My perception is different than yours because obviously I wasn't also in your skin and you're on the receiving end of everything that's going on as you're taking as all the information is public as well. That's a big problem. But here is where I'm going with this now. Number one, yeah, I'm sorry that what happened.
well, I'm
And
not,
number
because it revealed so much. And
yes,
now
yes, this
I
is
get
where
to
I'm
do
getting
whatever I
to. Is
want,
like
and
you
I
were
feel more
mentioning
free than I
games,
was last year.
but you also mentioned that you're ostracized from community. The thing is, what is the game that you're playing? That's what all of us need to decide. And then, as you say, some of the games are status games. And those are not the games that I play or have any intention on playing. My game that I want to play is contribute to FOSS. And then if I submit a commit to FOSS repository, that doesn't take away from anyone else's um, uh, FOSS contributions. It actually adds to that. And then if people are playing games where it's what you say, it's a status game on who is the biggest Bitcoin influencer on Twitter or X, then you also need to be honest with yourself. Is that the game that you wanted to play? Is that arena that you're entering? Because if you enter that arena and start playing it from that perspective, then you need to be 100% into it. And when you lose and are ostracized, then you can't pull the card or like, oh, poor old me. Like there will still be people like
Look,
Uncle
I'm fine
because
with
I'm
being
Bitcoin.
ostracized, okay? But at least present accurate information that you can prove. These people didn't listen to the interview. They didn't ask me anything. They just came up with
Oh,
this
like me,
theory
like
that I
I will
got
not.
paid. Then they tried to escape accountability for it. And then
Let's
I'm
not talk about them. Let's talk about me. Is like I will not listen to Roger Ver interview because it will not change my view of Roger. The
but
only
that's not
thing
the
that Roger
point.
Ver interview may change is your status as a Bitcoin podcaster, and it changed it in extremely negative way
Are you sure
because
about that? Because right now in the chat, people say they're grateful for that interview, and Monero people are making fun, saying, "Don't go against the cult unless you wish to sit upon the
yeah, yeah,
artificial altar."
everyone is pulling into their status and games, but this is again like, are you happy? Because you brought up that you are ostracized, that you wish that you were part of the group. That's the thing. Like we all need to make tough choices, and Monero people can say whatever. Like they just can look at Bitcoin XRP chart and see that they're losing purchasing power. So that's the thing in the end that I'm really the main point that I'm trying to make is it's up to you as individual.
Oh,
And
just so you know, next week I'm gonna interview Daniel Kravis, the guy who
oh my God,
came up
yeah,
with
the
hyper Bitcoinization on the
Nice.
Nakamoto Institute website, and then he went full BSV. And he said he wants to talk about
went full
narcissism.
retard. Yeah.
He's denouncing
That's what I
Craig Wright, but he
appreciate.
still likes BSV. That's interesting.
Oh my God, you like a fork of a Bitcoin fork? Like how retarded are you? And then we should listen to these people. No, Daniel is another soul. Uh, let's get to another point that Uncle has. It's like Bitcoin derangement syndrome. Do not give yourself to it. And don't take it from me, take it from people that you admire. Because if you have people you don't need to admire, like what would be the better word, Vlad? Like you respect
Yeah,
uh, and
Appreciate.
appreciate.
esteem,
Thank you,
but
Max.
don't worship.
Yeah, don't worship. Okay. But if you have like 10 of those people around and all 10 of them are telling you like, no, this is stupid, don't do it. Hey, you really need to dig deep down into you as individual and say like, this is my path in order to proceed, because maybe it is, but in 9 out of 10 cases it's not. There is a better path.
Oh, what if the same 10 friends would tell me that Bitcoin is stupid? You know, you have to look at it from this way, that if neither of us
100%.
ever questioned what everyone around them tells them, maybe we would never make any breakthroughs. We would never explore anything outside of our little bubble.
Now you're straw manning my argument, and I'm steel man. Like, absolutely great point that you're bringing up, because that brings you into this frontier of Bitcoin. But let's say that you were looking into this new frontier called heroin, and 10 out of 10 your friends were saying no, but you go down that path, your life is way worse. So have a good surroundings and listen to your surroundings. It helps a lot.
Well, I'm not gonna listen to Tsukola.
Who was that?
You know, Guacamole Tsukola.
Oh, to Giacomo. Giacomo is amazing. People should listen more to him, but
he was wrong on so many occasions, like even the ordinal situation. Like, you can't possibly say with a straight face that Bitcoin is permissionless, and then when people transact using Bitcoin, you're like, oh, this is a spam attack, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, but this is where markets are amazing. You look at everything that Giacomo is saying on ordinals, and I share the view that ordinals are retarded. You look at the price of ordinals. They're down in the can. You look at BCH. Look at the hash rate. So markets are amazing tools.
Sure, but the miners got paid, so...
Hey, are we now talking about... like, we're talking about objective reality. And
yeah, but we should also think about the security model of Bitcoin, like who's paying the miners.
What I think
right now
about,
it's inflation mostly.
I always look at like what tools allow you as individual to best align with objective reality, with objective truth.
Well,
and
which one is the objective truth?
That's the thing. That's the journey. That's the question that we are navigating, each one of us, every day. And this is where money was a big tool until it got corrupted by the state and central banks. It's like, if someone managed to amass a sizable amount of wealth, that person was supposed to know some things, not just be in the network or as close to money printer, the whole Cantillon effect. Like, you could actually look up and learn from this person. Whatever I think about the idiocy of Warren Buffett when it comes to Bitcoin, the Warren Buffett shares a lot of valuable life lessons. Now we can go into his private life and how that goes and relationships, but the guy knows way more than average person. So that's where I love markets. It's like, you and me, we can now talk for hours and disagree on this or that. But all I need to do is, like, if I want to objectively evaluate Monero, say, go look at Bitcoin versus Monero chart. And that tells me a lot. Maybe not 100%, but 80%. Giacomo Zucco, his stance on Monero, I absolutely share. Until market proves me otherwise, I'll just be like, hey, do more research in Monero. Like, no, I'll just read what Giacomo has to say on Monero. If market is different, then I may put in the effort, because I don't have time, man. I have, my life. I have all the obligations of my life. I have all the advisories that I'm maintaining within Bitcoin. You need to get to that. They don't have time to, oh, Giacomo Zucco is wrong. Great. When Giacomo Zucco's star stops to rise, then I'm gonna consider that.
Okay,
Until
so
then,
your argument comes down to US dollars because that's what this is about. You presented Monero as going down in price against Bitcoin, and you said that Giacomo was right just because ordinals lost value in US dollars because they're worth the
not
same
just,
amount in Bitcoin.
but let's distill it into market talk. Yeah. Like I think Giacomo Zucco is right. Roger Ver is wrong. Looking at proof of work and hash rate.
You know, Roger sold his Lambo to buy Bitcoin at $1.
I mean, he sold almost everything to buy Bitcoin Cash, and then also bankrupted Jihan to go all in Bitcoin Cash. So he also advised people to do something with Mount Gox. He spread conspiracy theories. He published a new book that's collection of his, what is it?
Did you read it?
Crying essays. Of course not. No, nor will
then
I.
Why do you review it on my podcast if you haven't read it? I've actually read it. It's pretty good.
Because
what it does is not to present his opinions, but actually it takes quotes and statements from people from 2016 and 2015 when the norm was that Bitcoin is going to scale with bigger blocks.
Man, I was with Roger on Reddit and like our Bitcoin and our BTC for most of that time, and he's not presenting what actually happened. He's presenting his version of poor old me. Bitcoin was hijacked, la la la.
Of course, that's the overarching theme, but at the same time, what he presents is statements by people who were there and they had a different opinion.
But he's presenting statements that go along with his crying, whining about injustice. While again, you look at the market. You look at proof of work. You look at objective reality based on the tools that we have, and it's completely opposite to what Roger is saying. Let's say this, Vlad. If at this point now, Bitcoin blocks are not full, we have Lightning. Lightning has succeeded as a scaling tool.
How? Is anyone onboarded? How many users are there? How many nodes have actual liquidity? You're relying too much on hubs.
Like how many?
That's the beautiful thing.
Yeah, my Max, jump in because Vlad is now. You're actively trying to not understand. You're trying to preach a point that's objectively not true. There are like millions of people that Lightning has allowed to be on board, and like you look at what I've done with BTC Pay Server by integrating LND into it. You look at Strike. That also 80% of backend of Strike still is the code I wrote. Like there are millions of people using Strike. So Lightning has helped.
Custodially.
Yes, custodially, because those people want the convenience of blaming someone else, right? Now you're like, Rockstar, why haven't you coded so much better so that it's non-custodial? Oh, okay, Vlad.
No, the objective answer is that it doesn't scale for that.
Okay, we can now debate that point, but what I'm trying to say is you look at the cost of transactions right now, it's like 1 sat per VByte. Blocks are not full. But let's say we get to the point that blocks are full and we get a decision made as a community to double the block size. We will be exactly technologically, we're going to be so far ahead where BCH is at, right? So what I see is the situation is that we picked the right path. This guy picked the wrong path. And instead of admitting that, he continues going down the wrong path, preaching and vilifying everyone that is telling him like, no, man, like just stop. You're wrong. And in doing so, does the whole thing which you mentioned is insinuating romantic relationships and manipulating the private information of people. So, like, give me a break.
Okay, so there are multiple
But this
layers
is
to
the
this.
main thing that I
Yeah.
appreciated of hearing Roger again on the podcast.
The beauty of the
Was
Bitcoin
that
design is
I
that you
was
can
hoping
secede.
that
You
he,
can say you don't agree with the rest
changes
of the nodes, and
something,
you can create
but
your
he
own
didn't
version
really
of it.
change.
It doesn't mean that it will have the same market value, but you can actually fork Bitcoin and say, fuck you, core. I don't like you. I disagree with your way of doing things. I will make my own version. And the market will decide what is valuable and what is not.
Yes.
Objectively,
And
there is
that
no
has
right or
been
wrong.
decided.
There is just more appreciated by the market or lesser used by the market. But anyone can actually do this. They can create their own fork. It's the beauty of open source software. You can simultaneously LARP as a libertarian and say that you can do whatever you want and you have free will, and then say that this is right and this is wrong. It's just more profitable and lesser profitable, but it's not better or worse from a moral point of view.
Like you're losing money. Yeah. No, I will, Uncle will defend with whole his being and not just as a LARP, but with the code that he writes. I'm going to defend everyone's choice to be like for free will and to be an idiot. It's just that some are abusing the privilege. Like that's what's happening. So, and they should be private about it. Like explore it in private setting with the people you admire, not worship, respect, and appreciate. And then if that goes wrong, do not take the sideway path of life, because that's going to take you further away from the truth and the realization of your individual capacity.
So the truth is the path that makes you most money.
No, the truth is the path that gets you in most harmony, in the best flow. Money just comes as a side effect, I must say. And but yeah, money is good. I can tell you one of the biggest reasons why I immigrated to US was to accomplish the American dream, right? You come to US, you work hard, you become a millionaire and all that stuff. But for me, man, I come to US so happy, start like freedom of speech, this and that, then it's not at all like that. You find out that it's mostly a LARP, that the what you saw in all those like American movies and TV shows, that's actually not the reality of life. That's the goal of life for 90% of Americans. Um, you One of the things that I also bring up is I was afraid coming in US, how am I going to compete on the job market with all these geniuses that have paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for their education. And suddenly I come here, I realize that they went to those universities, they haven't learned shit. It's like universities in Romania are better, way better than universities in US on average. Sure, if you go to Stanford and whatnot, but even if you go to Stanford, uh, you will get few good classes. Most of it is just networking. So what happens for vast majority of Americans is they finish college and now they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and they don't have the freedom. Social structure is way more individualistic, so quality of life is just way worse. But I go through that, get to the point where I can have quality of life that I've had back from where I'm immigrated, and then money as well. But money money is a nice tool. It's not the goal. And this is where I think even like people like Roger, I think money has corrupted them. If he just stayed the Bitcoin Jesus, the the evangelist that he was for Bitcoin, for free markets, he would be way better off. But he got lost in all these conflicts that he initiated, that he was wrong in, and then money as a factor also took over all the investments that was made in this BCH shitcoin to try to flip Bitcoin. So yeah, feel sorry for him. But
Well,
yeah,
he
money is not the
co-founded
goal. The
Kraken, he
truth is the
co-founded
goal.
Bitcoin.com and
Yeah.
blockchain.info and blockchain.com and all of these businesses that still exist today, and BitPay and whatever, they still make money. They pay him dividends. So if
Yeah.
I would not decry him, and I would not say that he is any way inferior to Guacamole Tsukola, because
Oh, she definitely is, in my view. Yeah.
I don't think Guacamole makes that money from Relay or whatever, or that these Lightning businesses are as successful as something like BitPay even today,
Yeah,
or
but what
Kraken.
was the question? Is like, what's the goal? Do we both agree that money is not the goal? Like aligning yourself with the truth is the goal. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, but your way of presenting the truth is that of the side that made more money.
No, 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 no. I said money is a side effect.
Because you also
I
said, oh, I don't like Monero because look at the chart and it's this terrible. But they're doing some interesting stuff. They're building full chain membership proofs. They are experimenting with a lot of the proposals that were made for Bitcoin, like confidential transactions and ring signatures. And then Dandelion Plus Plus, that was also proposed for Bitcoin for network level privacy. They have that. I mean, it's a nice sandbox for ideas that maybe were not implemented in Bitcoin for various reasons. Same as Zcash. You had in 2013 Zero Coin and Zero Cash, which were two papers by academics who wanted to improve the privacy of Bitcoin. It was proposed as a soft fork for Bitcoin. It was not accepted because at the time it required a trusted setup. What did they do? They launched altcoins. And now they managed to get it to a point where it doesn't require a trusted setup. You can have Zcash privacy with a soft fork without actually having the trusted setup as the way to bootstrap it. The problem is that the culture has
But, you
moved
know,
on
it's
from these ideas, and now we look at them, at least in the Bitcoin maximalist bubble, and we're like, well, it's shitcoin tech. It was not made by this circle of people. It was experimented on Zcash. Look at Zcash, the price went down, and therefore it's not good. It's no
Hmm.
longer about
no, but
what it
What
can
do
that's
you
do
a
for
think,
very
us.
weak
Max?
argument, right? Price is an interesting metric, but there's more substantial technical arguments for it, like good reasons why this was not implemented in Bitcoin, and one of
Yeah, but
them
that was 12
is,
years
for
ago.
example, scalability. No, it's still a huge issue, right? Like Zcash just a couple of years ago suffered an insane denial of service attack, where they basically made it near impossible to run a full node, which is essential if you want to use the network privately.
That
So
was
because of the
2021.
additional cryptography added, there was just a lot of extra cost in using the system, and these things have to be considered. Right? Like Roger understands a lot of the economics, but he had technical mistakes, and a lot of the cypherpunks understand the technicals, but they kind of made economic mistakes. So it's just a really complex science, so to say. And it's not that Bitcoin is perfect, but it has a decent set of trade-offs that make it work, and the early mover advantage and network effects that are quite crucial in the monetary system.
Well, but then you get into this argument that the way in which Bitcoin scaled is that there are all of these forks of Bitcoin, including Ethereum and Solana and whatever, that are onboarding millions of users that could have been Bitcoiners, but they're not. And they are basically sandboxes where the newbies are coming. It goes back to that Johnset post where he argued that it was always toxic, and the first layer is coders, the second layer is libertarians defending them, the third layer is prostitutes and pimps who use the technology for their daily needs, and drug dealers and whatever. And then Ethereum is like a layer 6 where you get the trolls, and you also get the advocates who are coming and they're saying, look, but this technology should not be regulated because, look, it can do medical data and you can put a lot of stuff on the blockchain, and then you bamboozle and you DDoS the regulators with all of this information from altcoins.
Yep.
And the newbies learn how to use a wallet, but they get wrecked in the end.
I mean, you always get wrecked in the end if you don't align yourself with objective truth. But then also, yeah, with your individual truth. This is where you as a interviewer may maybe rewatch this podcast and come up with more questions for Uncle, because it's already been 3 hours, and I love that we warmed up. I can see the comments on Nostr in the feed. Keep them coming. I love that someone is also vilifying me as our Bitcoin talking points. Hey, I dislike mods of our Bitcoin as much as everyone else, right? Vlad, have you been censored
That's why we have Nostr now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
We all
censored
been
a few
censored
times.
by our Bitcoin. Yeah.
I don't get these
Yeah.
guys. Like they have a list of rules and they say no price speculation or whatever, but most of the content is price speculation. And then you post something and then they take it down because they find some reason. But it's not price speculation.
It's like whatever gets the most points and likes, and because that's how I actually see is if it is someone else's domain, you to a degree need to play by whatever concepts that person has in mind, but you should be very careful not to be triggered into turning it into a status game where you want to take away from whatever that domain is, because there is always an infinite domain within you. You can always do better individually, and at the end of the day, that's again what I was saying is like, the point is not in money. The point is in aligning with your individual truth and then manifesting it in the best possible manner. And one of the worst things that you can do is when someone hurts you, objectively does you wrong, is to focus on that. Like I think a lot of my own success comes from the fact that there have been numerous instances where people have hurt me, but I've kept it private. I've leveraged that power of privacy, and I didn't go. Obviously, yeah, there were moments where I went also public and complained about some stuff, but most of the time, 99% of the time, you can see that, okay, I complained once. Now you know there were 99 of instances of me being wrong, hurt. Someone did me wrong. I leveraged the power of privacy, processed that, moved on, stayed focused on my contributions. And I encourage everyone else to do the same. And if you can't do it on your own, if you don't have a council, you haven't built it, reach out to Uncle. Bitcoin has, blessed me with this being a Bitcoin uncle with this title. So I'll see to help.
Anyway, when did you guys
And this is
check?
actually one of the starting. This is one of the starting lines of the 21.world initiative. Right, get a friend. Do it as a couple because that's way easier than doing it alone.
Yep.
Wait, so
Guess
what's
what?
21.world?
EinundSwanzig. It's the German initiative that basically saved Germany from total collapse by introducing Bitcoin and orange pilling the world.
That's funny. I remember I saw some of them in Frankfurt last year. They gave me some nice stickers. I bought a video game for the Game Boy from them. It's Hero of Bitcoin. I recommend that you check that one out if you're a nerd like myself. But there were a couple of guys who had BCH t-shirts and they showed up to the event. And it was so silly to see them being so misguided. I mean, the EinundSwanzig guys, because they went to them and they were grinning, saying, ha ha ha, you guys can't even run a node. But they're not aware that BTC is actually the chain with the larger blocks and the one with more transactions. So you can actually spin up a BCH node in like 6 hours compared to 1 day for Bitcoin Core.
Oh my God. We need to agree on criteria. I actually, in BTC Prague last year, I need to find the picture with 21 World group. That was one of my most favorite pictures. But no, Vlad, you focus on good, not on bad.
If you're going to criticize something, just get your facts straight. Don't just present talking points that are lazy and undersurface. Of course, if that protocol had actually maxed out all the time and it had full blocks, it was gonna be bloated and you couldn't run a node. But that's not, the technical reality of it.
I think you're going to rewatch this interview and you will be like, Uncle actually had his facts straight. He was 100% on point, unlike me. But I'll give you time to come to that realization.
Okay, so now it's about egos and saying, oh, I'm right and you're wrong, because we're just having a conversation as we established.
Now it's almost like that Jordan Peterson interview where, what's the name of the lady, where she's like, so you're saying, no, it's not about that, Vlad. But it's about Max as well. Max, join in. How are we closing this episode? Is there anything else you want to discuss?
Yes, stuff's difficult, right? So it's not really easy to walk through this, and that's why a lot of people make mistakes. And well, maybe we make the mistakes as well. But we keep building, and I think with Bitcoin, specifically with the privacy tech that we've built with it or for it, CoinJoin, Lightning, etc. And with Nostr, we solve a whole bunch of problems that we've just talked about ultimately. And you cannot have censorship of Bitcoin talk forums or something like this if we have a system that's properly designed. It's all ultimately about the incentives and how the protocol designers and the software implementers, what type of decisions they make, because they carry quite a heavy weight. Hopefully with time, we keep improving our software and our protocols in such a way that the end user ultimately has a better experience and a safer experience. And I'm quite hopeful that we can manage that and hopefully settle a lot of the disputes and conflicts that arose in the past because of us fighting over how to approach this type of technology. It's just really tough work.
I always approach it from a perspective of be hard on a problem, be easy on a person. And what you're mentioning about different chains, I think I'm on a record. There is something somewhere where I wrote that for even like, for example, Ethereum, I think it's technically one of the worst ideas ever. But if people working on Ethereum are moving towards their aligning themselves with their individual truth and they're doing productive work, doing research, more power to them.
Can you explain why it's one of the worst ideas ever?
Because blockchains are not meant for computation. Like this whole idea that you have everyone in the network has a copy of a smart contract and then it's executing it on all these machines around the world. Like it's stupid.
So
it's unnecessary.
It's stupid because it doesn't scale? Is that your argument?
Yes, absolutely doesn't scale. And then blockchains are invention for a distributed consensus. And this is something that Greg Maxwell brought up really nicely, is that the demand for always available distributed storage space is infinite. And because of that, scaling through increasing block size just doesn't, like, that doesn't work. And you even go way beyond that, where you don't even go into storage but into computation. Completely idiotic.
Well, the fun part of it is that with zero knowledge proofs, it can actually work. Maybe a decade later, but it was salvaged by this technology.
I don't know. So let's see, maybe. But to me, the fact that you had this period of excitement and everything else where developers like me were funded to work and discover themselves, work on cool tech, that's great. But there won't be a return on investment. So whoever is in that from the perspective of making money, you're wrong. And objective reality will show that. So yeah, that's how I look at it. But I would focus more on what I'm saying is more individual freedom for everyone. And just as you're leveraging that individual freedom, be conscious of when you're overextending yourself and now using that freedom not to move closer to your individual truth, but you're now encroaching on someone else's freedom, and you're wrong. Like, be aware of that.
Okay,
Yeah,
but you have to be aware of that also when you say that.
Money.
Sorry.
We have ultimate free market here, ultimately, on trying any type of different technology and seeing which one sticks. I think it's great that we have like 1,001 shitcoins with 1,001 different consensus mechanisms and scripting languages and whatnot. It still shows that economic network effects are extremely powerful. And so the people who've bet on Bitcoin in the past were, let's say, financially speaking, rewarded. But
I was going to say 1,001 ways to lose money, especially when we have sitting president launch a meme token shitcoin with Trump. And then I love the irony of destiny is another team launches a token for his wife, Melania, and then Melania rugs both that token and then Trump token. Yeah.
Oh, you have to remember that Melania is a bad omen. Back in 2021, she launched her NFT collection, and that was like the top signal.
Had no idea. I haven't done enough research. Right, Vlad? Should have done more research.
Whenever Melania Trump announces something, I think that's a good sell signal.
Okay, you're becoming my member of council for all things Melania. Yeah.
Just follow her on Twitter and sell. Don't assume that Trump's gonna pump our bags. I mean, David Bailey told us that we're gonna get a new all-time high in the month of April. I'm not gonna hold my breath for that one.
Well, I must say David is growing closer to my heart, especially now that I'm advising BTC Inc. I had a few conversations with David because of most of the things he posts online. I very much disagree with. Ordinals, again, being one of the prominent topics where we disagree. But one thing that I don't think anyone can argue when it comes to David is the proof of work. This thing that he managed to rally the support behind the whole Free Ross movement, and that we got Ross Ulbricht, Free Ross Day 2. It's simply amazing to see that manifested. So
it was day 1, but it happened on day 2. But to add up to your argument, like it's very easy to look at David Bailey's tweets and make fun of him. But at his events, he charges a lot of money for his booths. And once again, it's easy to make fun of him for this. But open source projects like LNBits or BTC Pay or many others, they get a free booth. And it's close to the open source stage. I think Seed Signer was there also last year. So he does care about these projects. He's aware that they can't afford to be at his events, but he gives free booths to such projects.
And free tickets for FOSS contributors. If you are a open source contributor and you want to come to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas, you can get a free ticket. Just find the link, because I don't have a link, and then you can join me and Casey with, in Las Vegas. We're gonna create one more great photo like this one. Ordinals are retarded.
And, people usually don't even charge enough money for their prices. People are underestimating inflation. There's so much money on the market, people are willing to pay way more than you would guess. So I'd suggest you consider doubling your prices at least, and you'll probably still keep your customers because your current rates are way too low.
Oh, are you sure? Have you looked at the price tickets for then? I was gonna say Nashville, but it's Las Vegas.
Price tickets are at the level, but the thing, what I'm looking at is if you're a FOSS contributor and you come there, you're making event better. You're making it better. And then for people that are not FOSS contributors, that are not contributing to Bitcoin, they're still paying the ticket, but the experience will be better the more developers, designers, product people from Bitcoin are there. So again, very much looking forward to Las Vegas. And then if you watched this stream with us for over 3 hours and you have any follow-up questions on Uncle's wisdom, find me. We're going to do a picture like this. It's an amazing moment.
Yeah, just stay away from the main stage. That's where the politicians and all the people who pretend to like Bitcoin now are going to be speaking. And if you don't want to get depressed, just stick to the open source stage or mining stage or whatever they have.
I do think
just to not go to any stage, actually. Just talk to the plebs on the ground.
I actually now will do that, what you're saying, Max, during Las Vegas. So stick with Uncle. I've always, at conferences, I don't listen to many speeches. But I'm now thinking, Vlad, it must be hard to be you. Like, come sit in the audience and then someone comes on stage and starts talking and you just, like, all these things where they're wrong pop into your head.
We all started somewhere. It's frustrating because they get such a big platform when they're clueless, but they have more power. They have more influence. If I say something, maybe 20 people are gonna take it seriously. But if they say it, and even if it's like 20% wrong, they're gonna be speaking to many more ears than me. So I'm fine with it. Also, that documentary by David Bailey, Thank God for Bitcoin. I'm not sure if you watched it, but he got all of these celebrities talking about 1971 and inflation and the creation of Bitcoin and what it does. It's amazing. It's like a 2-hour Bitcoin podcast where the people who speak are celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel useless on one hand, but on the other hand, it's beautiful.
See, we are getting closer to the truth. This is maybe something
But that's fine. You gotta adapt, man. You can't stay at the same level. You gotta learn something that they don't know. You gotta keep your mind open to what's happening in the open source space. You can't stay at the same Robert Breedlove level where you're just masturbating ideas and you're like, yeah, let's just find more fancy words to express basically the same concept. You have to pay attention to what's happening.
Yeah, Robert Breedlove has such a great production. I always give him that. But what you were saying about staying on the same level of advancing, I always go towards exiting. like opting out. This is again how I ended up in US, is because I knew I could, within a country I come from, I could work more, work harder, try to fix the system. But this is where I would need to encroach on individual freedom of others around me. And much better uh, strategy, in my opinion, is to opt out. And again, double down on yourself, focus on yourself, because there is no way I will become a better podcast guest slash social media influencer than Trump is. But the
But
beauty
do I
of Bit,
have to? Is that the goal? No, it's
yeah,
not.
that's the thing, is like what I'm saying. Like, you pick that game, and that's where most people pick the wrong game. Like, I go towards, okay, now I no longer need to go on a podcast and be focused on whether I'm presenting Bitcoin good or not. That's already taken care of. I can focus on topics that interest me, whether I get to them by publicly stating what I'm doing. Or the topic number two that I mentioned in the intro of this conversation was that I wanted to come on your podcast and discuss the situation that happened with Bitcoin maximalists, and you publicly, cutting yourself off from Bitcoin, going into like portfolio of shitcoins. I want to get an update on that as well. But that's it. It's like, I say to people, opt out, go towards your individual truth, and then see how much fun you are having, how much happiness you truly like feel, and navigate based on that, including the conferences. So, I going back to what I said about you being autistically blunt, I keep remembering last year when we were at Bitcoin Film Festival. That's one comment I appreciated from you on the voting for audience choice of the best documentary. You remember that?
No, I don't.
When there were like problems with envelopes and voting over Gazer, because BTC Pay Server documentary won, but then there was complaint from the dirty coin that they couldn't like send enough sats to win. And then you commented in Telegram channel of Bitcoin Film Festival. What did you say?
Oh, I gotta look that up. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember.
you were something like
From Uncle.
you were something again, like just bluntly autistically spewing out the truth. Is like, this is messed up. You look it up, and but yeah, that was a great event in the end as
Are
well.
you coming to the film fest this year?
No, I can't make it. So you will have to do without Uncle. I know you will miss me, especially after this podcast.
Oh, so to address your statements previously, first of all, privacy is priceless, and I don't feel sorry for investing in anything that concerns it and trying to understand technology that one day will come to Bitcoin. Secondly, you gotta adapt. You gotta keep learning. You gotta break boundaries. If you just stay in your lane and you're just like all the others, you don't have any competitive advantage because you're limiting your own intellect from ever learning something new. And not everything is a scam, or if it's economically scammy, it's not necessarily technologically scammy. So there's something to be learned. If I paid any price for my education, I'm fine with that. But I keep going with this podcast, and it's not like network television where if you don't have 100,000 views, you're gonna kicked out and they're gonna bring someone else to do the show. This is the internet. And on the internet, you have absolute freedom, which is only limited by maybe storage capacity somewhere in the cloud or in your own server. And the reason why I keep doing this, even if I don't go viral unless it's super controversial, and it annoys me sometimes, but it is what it is. First of all, I want to learn for myself and ask the questions that I want to ask and not what somebody else asks me. The sponsors never tell me what to do, and if they try, I ditch them just like that, because I don't rely on them. I don't rely on the community to keep me in check. If I make a mistake, I'm gonna suffer the consequences myself without drama, and I enjoy it this way. And I'm happy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm the people who listen to this are incredible. So I get comments from Jonas Nick or Robin Linus, or sometimes I'm not sure if I should dox everyone, but the quality of the listeners is orders of magnitude higher than the average, oh, we're all huddling and stacking podcast. And I'm happy that I grew up from that phase and I'm able to ask questions which maybe some others don't even utter to formulate, for the simple reason that they feel like they're flooding their own bags and they should be bullish all the time. And their single state of mind should be that everything is good for Bitcoin and they're bullish and there's no way anything bad can ever happen and everything is fine and everyone they talk with is well-meaning and smart and there's no way there can be any spooks in this community and the governments are helpless and they're just observing without getting involved. I mean, there's so much hopium involved in the space, and I'm just happy that I get to keep to learn. And when I get to speak my mind, I speak my mind. Sometimes I'm wrong. I can admit when I'm wrong, but I move on. I'm not gonna live the rest of my life just thinking, oh, I was wrong with this. Oh, I should have kept Bitcoin instead of buying Monero and Zcash. I don't live like this. I keep going. And if I made a mistake, I'm going to keep going anyway. And people, if they choose to remember me for the mistake as opposed to everything that I do afterwards, that's their problem. But I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't scam anyone. I just did what I think is right. And I still believe in privacy. And I think it's the next frontier. Just because it was in low demand so far doesn't mean that's going to be the future. Now with regulations in Europe, with MiCA and whatever, there's only got to be more demand for transaction privacy because these guys have caught up and Bitcoin already gives them all the information that they need on the base layer. If you send, this happened to me, I had my Kraken account closed. If you send money from the Lightning Network to an exchange, they actually asked me for 5 years of payment statements to prove that I have a job and the revenue and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, screw you guys, I'm just gonna withdraw, you can close my account. But it's not their fault, it's just that regulators have caught up. And I think privacy is the next frontier and we should explore these protocols while they're still available before they go full tornado cash on everyone.
It's your mistake for
Here.
trying to use a centralized exchange, you know? There's always better options for that. It's like the same mistake of using a bank account. You have to expect that eventually you'll get fucked.
No, these extremists, these psychopaths. Oh my God, Max. There are some of us that we are just defensively using privacy, not offensively. But enough with my jokes. I think the statement you just had, Vlad, is beautiful. And I would propose that we end this episode on that statement. The only thing I would add is I wish that freedom you obtained for yourself is the freedom that everyone obtains. And, you know, keep searching, keep going in the direction which you want to go. And again, if you ever end up feeling ostracized, consider Bitcoin Uncle. I'm there.
Thank you. Also, I got to ask you guys before you go, I have 3 more sponsors to mention. When was the last time you checked the news on Bitcoin.com?
Never.
7 years ago.
So right now they had this management change and they know the difference between BTC and BCH. And they got to a point where they hired journalists and they have much better coverage of news than Bitcoin Magazine in some cases. And they don't just focus on the US. You find news from China, from Japan, from Africa. So it's a lot more international in their news coverage. I like it sometimes. I open it, I find something that I don't find somewhere else. And it's well written. So I got to give them props for this. So if you get the chance, give them 2 minutes of your time and you'll see that it's different.
So can I say something on this?
Sure.
So in the end, Bitcoin.com is sponsoring your show.
News.bitcoin.com.
Oh, so not because
You got to go to the news. No, not their wallet and stuff.
Well, the last time I visited Bitcoin.com was when Roger flipped that by default you were buying Bitcoin, BCH, and then there was Bitcoin Core, and then I never visited Bitcoin.com. But yeah, they're sponsoring. Nice, nice to know that.
Well, this started like a couple of months ago, and it was my idea because I discovered their news, and I was like, you guys are different now, and I have an audience that maybe respects this. Or maybe not. You can shit on them.
They interviewed me in Mina, never published the interview. I was censored. So if you have connection with them, get them to publish my interview.
What was the year?
Oh, how the fate has turned.
The December 2024, like what, 4 months ago.
Oh, really?
So get them to publish my interview.
Do you know who was the interviewer?
No.
What was the place of the interview?
Bitcoin Mina, the conference.
Mina?
In Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
I don't see any reason why they would not publish now.
Definitely ping them on that. So
anyway, it's beautiful because there was this secession, this split, right? At one point, our BTC was Bitcoin Cash, our Bitcoin was BTC. You had the @Bitcoin account on Twitter, which was posting Bitcoin Cash content for a while, and Bitcoin.com also posting Bitcoin Cash. But now Bitcoin.com has finally figured out which one is the right Bitcoin. The market has humbled them, I guess.
Yeah. So this is the conference. I'll send you the link so you remind them. But yeah, Bitcoin Mina.
And also, I got to tell you about the business of Ray Youssef, which is... I was going to say huddling.ch. I'm tired. It's noonce.com. He used to be known for Paxful. Did you get to contribute to No Once? I think it was built on the CivKit platform, and that one was built on Nostr.
I was hoping Ray is going to include Uncle, but he never did. I hope that No One's continues making waves. So yeah.
It's a peer-to-peer exchange, and you find gift cards, and the people with whom you trade are mostly from Nigeria, from the Middle East. So the mission of the project officially is to empower the global south. And I think it's beautiful because it doesn't... One of the issues that I have with most of what's happening in Bitcoin is that it's very American-centric. Like, if you're not from this part of the world and it doesn't happen in this part of the world, you're not on the news, it doesn't matter, you don't get as much funding, you have to struggle more. I guess Max can attest to this because Wasabi, you guys tried to pitch a few times and it was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy to find investors that are mission aligned. But there's more and more now. But yeah, I guess the best investors are your customers, which is build a profitable business and sell your product early. That's the best way to get to funding.
The closer you are to money printer in the US as well, the easier things are. Yeah. Who is the final sponsor?
Hodling.ch, which is a business that's based in Switzerland, and they help businesses and rich individuals with their self-custody. So if you hold a lot of Bitcoin or you're part of a company that's going to buy Bitcoin, they're going to advise you on how to set up your multisig, what kind of hardware wallets to use, or if you need that at all, and where to keep them, because that can be another issue. A multisig is pointless if you just lock all the keys in the same place. So check them out. And they also have an interview in the previous season of the show where they give you some free advice. They have this 3-2-1 rule, which means 3 backups held in 2 different locations, and one of them has to be outside of your house. So this is the most basic principle that they promote. They're Swiss guys. Go to the team section. Their names are Polto and Darko.
Interesting. No, this is is their solution open source?
I don't know.
I don't think they need custom software, right? They just recommend you existing tools.
Because this is one of the things that BTC Pay Server, exclusive for your show, Vlad, multi-sig support in BTC Pay Server will be announced tomorrow. Your uncle Rockstar has coded it, so I can't wait for you to try out multisig in BTC Pay Server and criticize it, because I really want to do more of, instead of developing closed source solutions across the ecosystem, and then you start a company, then you get VCs to fund, and then code gets trapped. I want these common use cases like multisig to have as many open source tools as possible. And I will be, the way I built multisig, I'm going to be building these common use cases through BTC Pay Server core and plugins of BTC Pay Server. And hopefully I will get support and feedback from enthusiasts like you, Vlad. Can't wait to see how that unfolds in near future.
So is multisig a plugin or is it core?
It is now in core, but there is a plugin that's used to obtain XPubs from hardware wallets. And that we'll see. I think multisig deserves to be in BTC Pay Server core, and there are more improvements that we're working on. But right now MVP is there. You can set up a multisig. Then when new proposed transaction is created, everyone in multisig can get an email. They click the link, they review the transaction, they sign it. Once they sign, everyone again gets an email, and it's fully open source technology in a sense that it's not that we publish the code on GitHub, and if you fork it and use it in a different way, you need to pay us. No, it's MIT license. Fork the code, create your own version of BTC Pay Server. We'll just say multisig. So
does it also work across multiple instances? Like, can I have a hotkey in one instance and another hotkey in another instance, and it automatically signs? Or is it just a single instance with hardware wallets?
No, it's a single instance. What you could do is you can give the XPub of that hotkey, and then when you join to see the pending transaction that's proposed on BTC Pay Server that's acting as a coordinator, you can download PSBT and sign it and re-upload PSBT. So you can do that, but there is not, super fancy UI UX that does that for you. Right now, UI UX, to be frank, it's pretty basic. I just wanted to get this multisig out.
Nice, that's awesome. And is the BTC Pay Server Vault still a thing, like the desktop companion app for hardware wallets?
Yes, that's how you interact with USB port on the computer. But the great thing about this, what I love, is any pleb now can bring up a BTC Pay Server and use it as a coordination mechanism. So there can be Uncle Jim mode, where they host multisig for others, and it can be even anonymous, where if you want to sign, sure, you download BTC Pay Server on your device and you plug in hardware wallet and you sign, but you can do it without, really, you can do it on any computer as long as you access that website, download proposed PSBT, sign it, re-upload it. honestly really excited to see how it's going to be used in the wild.
Nice. That's awesome progress, man. Good job.
Yeah.
First, you made the salary batch payout, and now multi-sig. Like you're improving BTC Pay step by step. Good stuff.
Hey, I mean, I'm trying not to be a LARP. I will still see if in Vlad's eyes I'm deserving, but but no, actually, that payroll vendor pay plugin that I've done for BTC Pay Server, numerous projects now, companies that are for profit and open source projects as well, are now using that as a way to receive invoices from all their vendors, contractors, and then click, click pay, and they pay them out through BTC Pay Server. Previously in BTC Pay Server, you just had a single sig, but now all those companies, projects, individuals that are paying out others through vendor pay, they can upgrade to multisig, and it works really well. And I gotta give a shout out to BTC Inc. Actually, D, their CFO, and Michael Markle, they were the ones that helped me test multisig, and then obviously Pavlonex, Nicholas Cook started the foundation with pending transactions, and now I built on top of it. Can't wait to see what's the feedback when it's announced tomorrow.
Sneak peek exclusive to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast.
Yeah, you get the best news here. LNBits version 1.0 comes out tomorrow, and then also BTC Pay Multisig comes out tomorrow. What's so special about April the 10th?
I don't know. I think we all were just priming our releases for our Bitcoin, like this podcast, the best podcast in Bitcoin appearances. So thank you, Vlad. You will resolve that mystery once you want to do it.
Well, I'm happy until the end. You keep the attitude of I'm right and you're wrong. But it's fine. I don't hold grudges. It's just that there's truth and then there's rumors and speculation. And I don't deal too much with rumors and speculation.
Okay, Mr. Tough to Get.
It was good to have you also, Max. At one point, you were the most featured guest. You're like 7 or 8 times on the show. And then Paul Storz decided he wants to join more than you.
Yeah, that's outrageous. Not just more, but probably longer too.
Yeah, you gotta keep up.
Well, we will be on lookout when you invite us again, Vlad. And it's been pleasure spending this over almost 4 hours with you, gentlemen. Hopefully, audience loved it as well.
Yeah, and I want to say hi to Guacamole Tsukola, great guy.
There we go. We're repairing the wounds, mending the bridges. We will see. But no, again, these podcasts of yours as well. One final thing I want to say: they're a great documentary of times that we lived in and that we hopefully contributed to Bitcoin. So appreciate you for inviting me to join and being a guest for the first time. Maybe I managed to get to the heights that Max and Paul Storz got, but I don't know. Unlikely, very unlikely.
Oh, this is already in the top 10 longest episodes, I think. So congratulations on this. The longest is about 8 hours and a half. So you're going to have to work on your bladder and eat before the interview and make sure that you either turn off your camera. Okay, my girlfriend told me to stop here and not tell you that you should grab a bottle for peeing.
Say hi to your girlfriend. I saw her in Warsaw. You two are such a nice couple.
Oh, she's really sweet. We're working on a manga right now. I gotta show that. It's called Bitcoin Year One. It's a book, not a manga. Okay. It tells the story of the first year of Bitcoin, but in a more interactive and fun way, which is more graphical. And she's drawing. I did some stick figures with the outline, and she's actually making that beautiful with actual talent. I just wrote the dialogues, and she's doing the graphics. And I hope we launch that next month.
Looking forward to it. It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. See you next time.
Yes, sir. Goodbye.
Have a good one, guys.